just start from the beginning. Go to the bit about getting me Mexican food and having it, like you're going to retire my jersey in your house like Kobe, like LA Lakers or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're all going to die.
Like all of the Lakers. Every Laker gets
Every
their
Laker.
jersey retired.
Yes. I'm not even going to... That Vincent Luque bit did nothing for me. The only reason why I wanted to bring it up was Nico Price, because he's crazy and homeless, and he reminds me of every man from Florida that's ever been alive. Carla Esparza defeats Michelle Watterson by split decision. I think people forgot who Carla Esparza was, and then she reminded everybody.
Probably literally.
Because Carla Esparza is no joke, and she was a champion. So everyone's like, Michelle's just going to kick her head off, and everyone's like, you thought wrong. You thought incorrectly.
And I think it had been, what, 8 months since she fought, or something like that?
Yeah, who did she fight? She fought someone like a
top
5 person.
She beat Grasso, I think, last, or one of those two.
Yeah.
There was like 2 women she fought right after she lost to Suarez that I don't remember exactly who they were. But her last fight was like a fight of the night. It was in Mexico, I think, so it was like kind of a big deal.
Yes. Shouts out to Espanol.
I don't remember who she fought, but that was the last time we saw her. And I think lots have happened in the women's divisions since. So you can, I don't know if forgiven is the right word, but I can understand if you think Carla Esparza's name just hadn't like crossed your mind.
Right.
Whereas like Michelle Watterson has kind of become a character that the UFC uses a lot to promote.
The UFC.
And like anything really.
And being a mom.
Yeah. And that's become like a thing that's been used to keep her relevant. There's been no Carla Esparza thing. She's had to come kill someone first.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was a slaughtering, but it was definitely one-sided in my opinion.
I mean, she held her down and beat her up. I mean, that's what it is. That's what happened.
Not in every judge's opinion, apparently.
Yeah.
But it seemed pretty obvious that Esparza won that fight.
Yeah.
And pretty handily.
Right. The take that we had before my computer rudely cut us off was that I think at some level that the lack of crowd is impacting judging in a positive way and reffing in a positive way. For the fighters, I believe it's up in the air because everyone's a different athlete. Some people perform better under pressure. Some people perform better without pressure. Some people are indifferent, and I think we saw that in that way. But Jarrett gave his hot take that it doesn't make that much of a difference for the majority of it, which I can get behind. I think
it's hard to quantify. I think it's hard to know from one experience. Like, there's going to be like fights every 2 days. I feel like for the rest of the month.
Right.
I think in June we'll have a better idea if that's true or not. It's always been a factor, but like how heavily it's a factor is like completely unquantified and like kind of made up.
Yeah, it is.
And it's like literally up to every individual. Like some people will react to the pressures of people yelling at them more. Some people like that shit. Some people don't like that shit. Some people have like an impression they want to make or something they want to avoid, and some people don't. So like, the Diaz brothers might react differently to an empty crowd than Conor McGregor, than so on and so forth.
Right.
And that includes judges like not judges, refs. Like Mario Yamasaki might think differently about a fight than Levine or whatever.
Well, Conor's decided that he's going to come forward anyway. He wasn't going to do it for a minute because he thought that it would be for 2 reasons. He says it's because of the fans, but we all know it's because of the gate. I mean, like, come on, he stands to make so much money at the gate.
Yeah, he's not getting points if no one's buying tickets. So like, what's the...
Right. Well, they get pay-per-view points. And I'm sure
they get buys, but like they don't get gate.
Yeah, they don't get gate. Except for like the 20 people that show up.
Yeah. Everyone who's showing up isn't.
Can you
paid.
imagine giving like a check for like $20 for all the people that were there? But it's just like a matter of like this is probably the best. It did so well. It sold like they estimate like 700,000 pay-per-views, which is like a really big deal. But there's no gate, so it kind of offsets it a little bit.
And is that because there hasn't been any? Like that doesn't mean like there's a desperation, a drought for it.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're going to get 700,000 buys every single time.
Well, I'll tell you what, if 700,000 people are going to, or at least 700,000 accounts are buying, for Dominic and Henry or Tony Ferguson and Gaethje, I mean, you would have to imagine it would be upwards of millions for McGregor for a worldwide event like this. He would have to do it fast, though, because the other sports are going to start coming around the corner. I feel
that's true. I think McGregor is going to sell no matter what. No matter what he's put up against. If it's not the Super Bowl, he's going to sell.
I'd stand that. I would think that he would stand to make more money if there's nothing on the playing field versus something. You know what I mean?
I don't know, because I think it's been time and time again that people will choose McGregor.
That's true.
And they'll make an event out of McGregor. You chose McGregor this morning when you put that shirt on.
I did. I like this shirt. I like Adidas, and I'm Irish, so. Shouts out to Ireland.
He is like appointment viewing, whether you like him or not, and that's why like he can, take a year off and do a boxing match with another person who's appointment viewing.
I think he was a little shifty on whether or not he would commit to it until he saw how it was done, how the business was gonna work.
And he's in a position where he can do that.
Right.
He's like demanded shares, so he's like has a stake both in the company and how it works, and in his own making money while doing that. It's not like a stupid idea. He also won his last fight pretty handily against a name, so he has like a very good bargaining sort of position. So like, why not wait and see? He can decide whatever happens. Like, he could choose to fight someone who fought, in this past card. I don't think he's going to fight Justin Gaethje, but like
he might.
He can do whatever he wants, and I think that's. He made a wise decision waiting to see if this is going to be a bomb or
not. Yeah. I mean, like, they hit it out of the park. I mean, it's kind of hard to fuck. The only thing the way it could have fucked up is if they just didn't do what they were saying and they weren't testing people for COVID and people were getting infected left and right and, the venue fell through and, but none of that happened. So everything went without a hitch. And, I mean, kind of. Well, there are a lot of journalists coming forward like, hey, people are not speaking about how poorly this is done because they don't want to anger their boss.
and there's still some time that needs to go by before we know if the handful of tested, like positive confirmed coronavirus cases that were there, didn't spread to other people.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
Ronaldo Souza and his quartermen like absolutely had corona and were just like chilling with people for like most of the day before they knew that.
In the lobby of the hotel and all that other shit. It's unclear that they were caught. They think they narrowed it down to someone catching it from a kitchen. So if that's the case, a kitchen in the hotel, if that's the case, then how many people were exposed? Because a lot of people were eating from that kitchen, I'm assuming. So, yeah.
So it's really hard to know like if that aspect of this was a success or not. I think it's also difficult to measure because look at the fucking card. The main card had a co-main events that were like huge. Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, Cejudo, and Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
It had Francis Ngannou, who's always a buy. Greg Hardy, who's a name that people just continue to buy to hope to watch him get killed, and it just doesn't happen. Hadn't seemed to happen yet.
Cerrone and Pettis being added.
Yeah. Jeremy Stevens, which I guess is a name. I don't know if anyone's buying cards for him, but like
people get excited when they see his name on the ledger because they know it's going to be like a slugfest of a fight.
Right.
Because that's what he presents to the table.
So like if you wanted to see people fight, this was like card built for people to watch people get their heads beat on.
Exactly.
And it was as delivered. But like I don't know. I mean, this one's a fight night. What's the next time? Next one you have to buy is $250, I think. Amanda Nunes is the main event.
Have they even filled up that card yet though?
They have names on the card. I don't know if it's filled out yet. They have like 3 weeks to do so though. And I think that's the only fight that I can think of note on that card.
Where is Mike Perry when you need him? Where is Platinum Mike
Platinum
Perry?
Mike, he's still trying to get that he's still trying to start beef with literally anyone in Hollywood to get a big fight.
You know what's really strange? I think he's dating a girl in high school. He's literally living the life of like Seth Rogen in Pineapple Express, where he shows up to that fucking 18-year-old girl's high school thing.
Mike Perry looks like a dude who would date a high school girl. So like, this all tracks.
It all makes sense. Shouts out to Mike Perry holding it down. And by holding it down, I mean statutory rape almost.
Possible.
Possible statutory. Yeah,
I'm not the police.
You don't just pick up an 18-year-old girl like in your hometown the day it happens. Like something happened there. We'll leave that hot take for the public to figure out. Mm-hmm. Anthony Pettis and Donald Cerrone, they beat the shit out of each other for most of that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Some people had Cerrone winning. Others had Pettis winning. I had Pettis winning. But that was about what we wanted out of that. Huh? We got what we wanted out of that.
I mean, that's why they're on the card.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone was like thinking that this is going to be this is like going to be some sort of, career making, changing fight. They're like, no, y'all are out here.
My only hot take on this is like, how many more times does Donald Cerrone need to get bludgeoned to death before he like retires? Because if he could lose 10 in a row, and his record and his legacy will be intact. But it's like, why? Please don't.
Because he's here for the vibes.
He's here for the vibes.
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Which
right.
Which might be the real problem. Like he just doesn't. He's just kind of out here.
Just taking fights after getting clobbered to death.
I think you kind of alluded to it when we were talking about him versus McGregor. Like he kind of had an opportunity to like really. I don't want to say get serious because he's serious. He trains like a fucking serious fighter. But there was a window in his life where like.
He needed to
obsessing about being the champion was a thing, and he had to do it then.
Yeah.
And I think that window might have closed.
It's too late now.
Though I said the same thing about Bisping, and he had like a late in life championship.
Here's the thing, though, because the stars aligned and middleweight was super dry.
Yes.
And
he immediately when he had to go to defend it, he lost.
Yeah. GSP came off the couch like, hold my beer. He's like, this is my time to cement my legacy. You let this guy make it? Okay. Although he did beat Luke Rockhold like fair and square.
Yes.
I will say that. That wasn't luck. He just simply showed up and beat Luke Rockhold unconscious. Mm-hmm. And that was and you can argue since then Luke has never been the same.
No, but I feel like maybe Luke asking himself that question too. Like, do I have to come back?
Yeah. He's like, I got all this underwear shit going on.
Right. And what's his name? Who's out here picking fights at Pro Gonzalez?
Pro Gonzalez?
Yeah.
Henry Cejudo?
Curtis.
50 Cent Jackson?
No. What's his last name?
Curtis Blades?
Yeah. Curtis Blades.
He picked a fight?
He was on like Twitter talking about how female fighters like get more promotion because they're hotter and they just wear like bikinis and it's like whatever.
Partly true.
And it doesn't matter. Like they don't have to be as talented because they have like a fast track to being.
I didn't say that, but I mean, like we talked about this on our last podcast, right? Like you can use the platform to be a little schluddy if you want, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's number one. A, that doesn't mean that's all they bring to the table.
Right.
B, it's like it's just one way to do that. Like it's not like it, and if you do that and you get the attention, it doesn't mean you're gonna do anything with it. So like you still have to sustain the attention and sustain the brand and still be marketable. And I even talked about it in the way that like if you market yourself that way, you can only do so much with that type of audience because you eliminate your. That's why I think Michelle Watterson kind of pivoted, because when she started, she was kind of doing the thirst trappy stuff, and then she pivoted to I'm a mom, karate mommy, and then now she's like basically a household name as a result. Like they're really forcing. Michelle Watterson hasn't won a fight in almost 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a while, and we still talk about her like she could,
right?
And which is great marketing,
right?
And
she could. She definitely could. She's a top 15 talent. It's one of the and she's fighting in the most difficult divisions in the UFC.
I think looking at her win-loss record in the past 2 years is like not indicative of her skill, but more indicative of her competition.
Right.
But I think where Kurt gets his position wrong is like men could be doing this too.
Yes.
Luke Rockall's underwear commercials, like
right.
He's out here with his dick out all the time. Like
dick
this
out.
Could be you, Kurt.
Right. You thought McGregor was walking out shirtless and in a mink for God? Did he do it for the glory of God?
Yeah, he did it for all the homies in the streets.
Right.
No. He knows who he's talking to, and he knows what the picture's being taken. He knows where they're going.
He can't say it's even cultural. Like, minks is not the thing in the streets of Ireland. Like, motherfuckers are not walking around with minks in Ireland. Like, that was a very uniquely over-sexualized thing.
Cultivating a look that is leaning, and like, whether you like it or not, like, it's a sexual thing. Like, listen, if you thought Conor McGregor wearing nothing but, like, low-cut, I don't know, skin-tight fucking leather pants and a mink was
don't
like...
say leather pants, bro.
Was like cool homie shit. Well, like, that's cool, but maybe also you're attracted to Conor McGregor because that's what he was doing.
If you saw that and you're like, no, that's a
there's something, I don't know how I feel. I'm feeling something about this.
Yeah.
Then that's might be what you're feeling. And I think it's important that, like, men recognize, especially these men who are, like, physically fit, like... well-trained, like well-musculared, well-physique gentlemen should recognize that this could be you too.
Yeah, I mean, like, go to any fucking like, go to Francis's page. It's him shirtless. I mean, like, if I looked like Francis, I'd be shirtless everywhere. I don't think I would wear clothes, ever. I'd be walking around.
I don't think I've seen Francis Ngannou with a shirt longer than, like, a minute.
Right, and if it is a shirt, it's, like, fucking sewn onto his skin. Like, it's, like, barely... he's gonna walk around like this, like...
Right.
So...
like...
sex sells, and it's not just women doing it, it's men too. Come on, this is a feminist podcast, and we talk about the issues that we all need to talk about.
Nothing's rumbling through the feminist Reddits than can men be sexy on Instagram.
That's right. Curtis is wilding on that one. But I would be frustrated too if I'm, like, consistently winning and no one's giving me any title shots.
Right, but he's in a place a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Or he's not only a lot of people, maybe not right now, but he's in a place a lot of people have been and will be after him.
Yeah, like Tony Ferguson. Well, I would say worse than Tony Ferguson, but I mean, I would say no one's as bad as Tony Ferguson in the way that, like, he's done everything that you're supposed to do to get a title shot, like a legitimate title shot. And the rug just keeps getting removed from him, whether it be natural or whether it be, like, on purpose or whether it be, like, business related. Like, he just seems to have, like, the worst run of the luck. And he seems to be taking it the best out of anyone I've ever seen take it before. But it's a shame, ultimately. But Curtis is kind of falling in that same run where he's, like, winning consistently and he's beating top 10, top 5 guys. And then when it comes to who's going to fight the heavyweight, we're waiting on Danny Cormier and we're waiting on Stipe. And if it's not those two, then it's whoever's the hottest on the market. And right now it's Francis Ngannou, despite whether he beat a top 10 guy. I think the Biggie boy was like 9 when he beat him. Mm-hmm. Whereas Curtis has been sitting in a top 5 position for the last 2 or 3 years. So you kind of wonder, like, when is his number going to get called? And I think that's why the frustrations come out. And I think we're seeing that, him lash out with his toxic masculinity.
I just feel like if Curtis was smart and less frustrated, maybe from a less frustrated position, he can see this.
Yeah.
Is that maybe he needs to do something else while he's waiting, like be an R&B video or something. I don't know.
Well,
do TikTok dances. I don't fucking know.
Do that? Do TikTok dances? Yeah.
I don't fucking change your brand up. I don't know. Like, give your brand a refresh.
Listen, Drake. As much as
Drake released a single specifically for TikTok dances. This could be you.
This could be you, bro.
6ix9ine just got out of prison to make a song that I'm sure a 17-year-old girl is doing a TikTok dance to right now.
First off, I will do a TikTok dance to it to make this work, so I don't care.
This could be him.
This could be him. Yeah.
You could call Fruit of the Loom and be like, "Would you like to see my dick print in one of your various garments?" And if he has a good agent, they'll say yes.
Yes.
And, like, this could be him.
Yes. Did you know they have gay underwear?
What is that?
So, it's gay. It's underwear designed by gay people for gay people. The way, as I was told from a gay man. We were all in Seaside. I was there with my girlfriend. I was there with his Navy buddies. Funny enough, he was in the Navy. The gay man explained to this. And he's like, talking about. I don't remember what the context was, but he's talking about gay underwear. I'm like, what? What the fuck is gay underwear? I'm like, what could it possibly be? It's just like really tight underwear and it's got dick holes in it. That's basically what it is. So Curtis can hit up the gay underwear people. Put his dick There's like a loop in the front of the underwear that you put your dick in, so it is more prominent in the gay underwear. I felt like that could be for any. I would love to have that for my girl. Walk around in my gay underwear in the house.
Like that sounds like underwear. Yeah, that sounds like straight underwear as well.
It's like it's designed to accentuate the penis in the front of it.
Okay. Well, I feel like that could be a Curtis Blade brand.
Yeah.
Is all I'm saying. Like Curtis Jackson made those stupid fucking G Unit like beater things. Those tank tops that had like the swoops that swooped inwards. Yeah. This is dumb as hell.
Yeah.
But that was like I had the street shaking for like 3 years. I don't see how Curtis Blades couldn't be the Curtis Jackson of dick underwear.
Yeah, you can do gay dick underwear tomorrow, bro. Or straight dick underwear.
Okay, who knows?
Yeah.
Urban dick underwear. This could be you.
Urban camo.
I know you're listening to this,
Curtis.
Call me.
Call us. We'll stitch you up with some gay underwear guys in the textile world. The world's never needed gay underwear more than it's needed now.
It's so important.
It's so
for
important.
You to be on the cusp, on the front lines of this new world.
And for a nickel a day, you can support a child in Africa with gay underwear.
You could probably.
Hello.
It'll be like Tom's, but for dick underwear.
Yeah. It's made out of all recycled Hanes.
It's like Super Bowl T-shirts from like the teams that lost for the past 10 years.
Don't put the gay underwear on the kids, bro. Don't put gay underwear on the kids. Don't do it. It's not for kids.
There's just so many opportunities here. And I feel like Kurt's being short-sighted by blaming it on Pro Gonzalez's boobs.
And their bodies. Shouts out to Pro Gonzalez's boobs. They are delicious.
It's not her fault.
It's not her fault. Well,
it kind of is. It's not her fault. It
kind of is her fault because she did get a boob job.
That's true.
That is her fault.
But what's not her fault is that people care about her more than him. That's not his fault. That's not her fault.
I feel like they don't.
And they probably actually
don't.
I feel like misplaced his rage thing.
I feel like if you talk to any regular person, if you talk to a casual MMA fan, a diehard, I only know about Pro Gonzalez because I have Invicta through Fight Pass. If you don't have Fight Pass, like she made it to the UFC, she didn't do all that well, and then she kind of just does. She's like, I can beat up lower level competition and make just as much money in Invicta, so let me just do that. Which
sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. And if your face is the moneymaker, you're not trying to get it shredded in the meat grinder that is the UFC in that weight class that she was fighting in.
Right.
So she's not moving up. She's not moving to 145, and she's not moving to 135. So which it gets progressively worse. So, yeah. Shouts out to Pro Gonzalez though.
Also, humans have like brains that allow you to think about multiple things at once.
Yeah.
So.
You're asking a lot.
As Kanye once poetically said.
Oh boy.
Let me not paraphrase.
Okay.
Kanye. Let me quote Kanye specifically.
Yes. Warrior poet Kanye West.
And Soldier of God currently Kanye West.
Yo Romero?
Also Yo Romero. Yo Romero maybe more of a soldier than Kanye. If God was like, I have soldiers, and showed me Kanye and Yo Romero, I would probably laugh at one of them and then cry about the other one.
Right.
From Kanye's, I think this actually, I was going to joke and say Kanye's platinum selling album. Yeah, I think it actually did go platinum.
Yeah, but like it was almost design. It was almost by design. It's a 25-minute album. It's Kanye West. People are going to listen to it over and over again. That's the fastest way. That's XXXTentacion was like a kid that did that too, and I feel like he picked up from that.
That was a lot of the quote unquote SoundCloud rapping, like Denzel Curry, like kind of make that a thing. Right. Like what if I didn't make an hour and a half album with like 17 songs? What if I just made some shit you can just kind of like
vibe to for 20 minutes and then wait to shop or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. But it's smart for the purposes of streaming because you're getting more streams. It doesn't. I don't know. I don't know how they do their algorithm, but I'm assuming because it worked that they do it for plays and not necessarily play through the whole album versus minutes listened to the album. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they did an hour, like would you have to listen to that album 4 times for it to count? I don't think so. I think
I don't know. And like, yeah, I feel like that's been the controversy. Like, what the fuck do streams mean? Like, how is that valuable? Like, who pays because you have 125 million views or whatever? Like, how does that translate into money?
Ad revenue?
Yeah, but it's only translates to money for the person with the views if they already had like a relationship with whoever's selling things over it. Like,
I think that Spotify has bought the rights to a bunch of these albums because there's some albums that you just can't listen to on Spotify.
Well, yeah, you have to go through record labels depending on who you are and have to like license it. But like, say, well, Spotify is a better option because you can actually there are people talking to make these like these agreements. Right. If you're just self-publishing shit on SoundCloud or whatever or Bandcamp, then like you're not like the fact that you have 100 million listens doesn't mean shit because no one cares. Like no one saw that number and has turned that into value for you.
Right.
I don't know how I got here.
I forgot too. You're talking about Kanye West. You're quoting Kanye West, Soldier of God.
Oh, yeah. Soldier of God. Kanye West once said in response in relation to being able to focus on 2 things at once.
Yeah.
Quote, "I love your titties because it proves I can focus on 2 things at once."
Shouts out to Kanye West
from
that gem.
All Mine, a song that feels like should a beat that went to someone else and then somebody else, but then Kanye killed both of them and took it and made this song. Yeah.
Shouts out to the opening song, I Thought About Killing You, and it's almost a 3-minute song glorifying domestic violence.
And then like the last 30 seconds, like a backbeat comes in and then maybe a verse and then everyone sits and thinks, I did start listening to this album, I guess. So
I played it for my dad and he just thought it was a joke. He thought it was he was kidding. I'm like, no, he's spiraling out of control, Dad. This is where he's at now. So.
Yeah, this is definitely a
cry for help. This is a cry for help.
This is going to be a point where we're looking back and saying we should have did something right around.
Kanye West, outside of his home, has been arrested. Viewed here outside of his home, murdering all 5 people in the Kardashian family brutally with a hammer.
Who'd have thought that a dude who ends the song with a song called "Violent Crimes" is capable of doing such things?
Right. Don't worry, these streets are still fire because he recorded the whole thing and it seemed to have made some sort of album out of it. You can hear the death rattle of Kim Kardashian on the last song, I Killed the Dumb Bitch. That's the title of the song. I could see that happening.
I can't wait for Pitchfork to give that like a 9.
You can really tell that he put a lot of his effort and time into...
He like really killed her.
Murdering his family, and it's like, fucking Pitchfork.
Wow,
He really went to the depths that some artists are not willing to go to.
Like being a murderer.
All right, we're going to move up to the main card. Greg Hardy versus Jurgen De Castro. I was hopeful for Jurgen, but if you look at the size, before they even walked out there, I'm like, I watched Jurgen fight before. Have you ever seen Jurgen fight before?
No, I've seen him.
He literally looks like me. We're about the same height. We're about the same build. He's probably like way more athletic and strong, but we have the same thick boy legs and buttocks, and power, and we're a little bit quicker for bigger guys ourselves. He put on a clinic for the first round, and then like big men such as ourselves do, we ran out of gas, and he got picked apart for the last 2 rounds. But that being said, going into that fight, I was hopeful that Jurgen was going to win, but Greg Hardy was like almost 6 to 7 inches taller than he was, which makes a big deal if you guys are about the same weight and he's filled out more and he's further away and he's quicker and he used to be an NFL star defensive end, and it just came up to like tangibles against intangibles, because their skill level was about the same. Going into that fight, it was about the same, but Greg
I would say
was a little bit bigger.
Jurgen might have even had smarter like shot selection.
Yeah.
But he just didn't have the gas to like
make it
keep the pace, and he definitely didn't have the gas to like stage a comeback.
No.
Because the last round he kind of had an opportunity like right after he got hit by Hardy like hard early in the last round, and that kind of like it didn't stumble him though. It kind of like brought him back into this, and then you saw that like sort of urgency for like about a minute, and then he was gone again. So really, Greg Hardy continues to be someone just good enough to fight people you haven't heard of.
Yeah.
But it seems they're taking a long time to like book him against the next one, like the real one.
Yeah. He did get a real one though. I will say that. Volkanovski? No, that's the guy at 45. Alexander Volkanov?
I mean, he had Volkov.
Volkov?
Yeah. In Russia.
That was closer than people want to admit. It was he had a pretty good showing against what I thought. I honestly thought Alexander was going to walk in there and wash him. That's what I thought was going to happen. And one of the reasons why Greg Hardy couldn't even press anymore is because, you know, Volkov kicked him in the hand and broke his hand. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like, and that's not an excuse. I mean, like, Greg Hardy's a big guy. For you to kick him once and break his hand, you know, that speaks volumes to his level of skill and his strength. So, but it makes you kind of wonder, like, you know, if he was 100%, like, what would that fight have looked throughout the entire thing? Because he didn't get tired. He hung in there. Hey, listen, Greg Hardy's been shown up prepared. The only time we didn't see him unprepared was, like, the first couple of times he fought in the UFC. And he was, like, running out of blood. God, that's a lot of blood. And he was running out, and he ran out of gas, like, real quick, and he was a little bit inactive. But now we're seeing him, you know, gather his pace and not take steroid inhalers and figure it out and pick people apart. Unfortunately, he's been picking people apart. His biggest, I guess, bodies of work, or his best bodies of work have come against guys who are like 6 inches smaller than he was. So it's like, you know, I want to see him go against Derek Lewis or Curtis Blades.
I think that's I think anyone who does something enough and is like has an aptitude for that kind of work will get better.
Right.
Like, he's getting better every fight because you should. I would hope. The problem is, like, where we're at the point now where you have to fight like a heavyweight that we know about. Fight a heavyweight that we know can challenge you. Like, now's the time you fight like an Olenek, or maybe. I don't even think Greg Hardy's like top 15 at this point. So there's probably someone lower you can probably fight that would make more sense. Like, does Verdum still fight? Like, Fabricio Verdum would fight, I think.
He fought on this card.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did I miss that?
And he lost, yeah.
Was it an opening fight?
It was on the prelims.
Okay, I don't think I saw the prelims.
Fabricio Verdum. Who did he fight?
Oh, he fought Olenek, yeah.
He fought
okay.
Olenek. I think next on, maybe that was a fight to set that next fight up. Maybe Olenek fights Greg Hardy next, because I'm pretty sure Olenek is a top 15 fighter, a contender right now.
Yeah, he's probably top 10 now.
Right.
But like that, like, I think that is the test to see if there's a future in this for him. But I think also the booking is such that we don't ask that question. Like, I think he's clearly being booked against people he could probably have a convincing win over, because nobody really wants to have a conversation about, like, can he beat the top 10?
Hey, First Round Management's one of the best management companies in the world, because they've been with Greg Hardy since the start of his career, and they've really, like, made a domestic abuser, like, like really, like, fucking. He's had more fights than than Donald Cerrone has in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Year or two. He's been fighting consistently. He's been getting damn near co-mains and main events, and he's been on a lot of major cards the last few years. So, you know, give it up to them. They've really been working their asses off to make this guy marketable.
Fight through that whole thing, that whole little incident.
I just can't let it go until there's some retribution, and I feel like his retribution is him taking the fattest of L's. You know what I mean? Like, and, like, just being pushed out of this and, like, washed away. Like, he could have, like, if he just tiptoed away and then, I don't know, vanished for a little bit and came back, I think even then there's an opportunity to have another, like, to reintroduce him, have him, like, address it up front and be like, and then, like, kind of move on. That's how it usually happens. But he immediately was like, oh, the NFL wants to suspend and, like,
fire me. Well, I'm just gonna slide this directly into the next venture, which is being reckless in MMA, where these things are taken less seriously.
And I can just be all doe-eyed, like, I didn't know that was a rule until it happens.
Allow me to, artistically cheat.
Yeah. Hey, man, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Shouts out to the Patriots.
Just want him to have a fight that feels like it's for something. I think even if it is with like fucking a random guy, pick any name in the 10 through 15 range in like the rankings and have him fight one of them, because then it'll feel like he's fighting for more than just making him money and making everybody upset.
Right.
Like it does. Him being booked every time feels like a troll.
Every time he makes a mana card on a huge card, it's like always a giant card too. If it's a fight night, he's the co-main or he's the main.
And it seems booked specifically because his name will get people to watch because they're upset and it'll make money. It just seems so cynical because like even now, like Fertitta, like Dana White, like do any of them even care if he like is a contender? Not really. No. He's just not CM Punk, so he's not going to embarrass them.
We can't say he's bad. You know what I mean? What do you think the end? Like, what? Like, if you could project his career, right? You had the magic ball, and you rub the magic ball, and you tell me what you think is going to happen next with Greg Hardy. What do you think is going to happen next? What do you think is foreseeable for him? Do you think it's actually possible for him to get to a number one contender spot in that division?
No, only because I think it's definitely possible for him to win a fight against a contender.
Yeah,
I don't know that it's really possible for him to get to a position where he's beating someone like even Junior Dos Santos, who I think is like at the tail end of their career, but he's not beating Francis Ngannou.
No,
he's not beating Daniel Cormier. He may be. I think it's possible he can give Overeem a decent fight, but I think Overeem's just a better fighter, a smarter fighter.
I think he would outpoint him for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of like heavyweights that we talk about like all the time. I can't think of one of those dudes he'll beat.
Yeah, I can't see him beating. I would love to see Rosenstruck go out there and fight him, because you look at a guy with Jorgen De Castro who may be a tad bit more skilled than Greg is. As far as he's way more skilled than Greg is. He's just much smaller. He just he hasn't developed enough in the league. He's only been fighting in the league but a year, 2 years. I would like to see a guy like Rosenstruck go and fight Greg Hardy, but I would also like to see Greg Hardy go against somebody. The point I was trying to make about Jorgen. The issue that I have with Jorgen is that he might have been a little bit more, a tad bit more skilled than Greg Hardy, but the shots that Jorgen were making early in the fight, like out of the gate, when he was coming out hot, he's not taking one or two of those shots from Francis Ngannou or even Rosenstruck. Jorgen is very strong for his size and he's very quick for his size. But the fact that he was able to use the most simple kickboxing angle cuts and able to position himself from that far out, close the distance and get inside. I mean, could you imagine what happens if Francis does that to you? So, I mean, we know what happens. He gets inside and you die.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen it happen multiple times. Like, and Francis Ngannou is a person, whose kickboxing, his technique has like improved exponentially in a year.
He's cleaner. It seems like he's getting away from just like biting the
being stronger than you. Like it sounds like he wants to. He's punching with purpose. He can kind of place hands at will. He can cut a little bit of angle. Like he knows how to get his hands where they need to be. And there's nothing about Greg Hardy's performance that tells me that like he knows how to stop that from happening.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No. It's I'm glad you said those exact words, because if you go back and you watch Francis his last 4 fights, those knockouts are coming from inside the box. And they're very short space punches. They're like tiny hooks off of off of them turning or out of exchanging or him finding and waiting and moving his head and throwing a hook or throwing a right hand straight. This one was a little bit faster because he's so much bigger than Rosenstruck is. So much bigger. So he just bull rushed him, and Rosenstruck only could go but one way, and that was back, because he couldn't figure out a way how to get around him.
And the guy whose arms were so long that back is not going to save you.
Right, back and to the side's not going to save you. It's almost like him throwing head kicks to check your movement from circling out. He's able to use it in that way. So yeah, I would love to see. I don't think we're going to see him fight Francis because Francis is too high up on the rung.
No, I mean that wouldn't be the next one, but right. I feel like if his journey involves going up that ladder, Francis is a rung on that ladder.
Yeah. Shouts out to Francis Ngannou. Wakanda forever. Calvin Kattar defeats Jeremy Stephens by KO. That was crazy as shit. Calvin Kattar has been having sort of this meteoric rise up his division at 145. I can definitely see him vying for a number 1 or number 2 contender spot soon. I would like to see him run it back with Zabit for a 5-rounder. I think that he can beat Zabit. I honestly think that he can beat Zabit because in that last fight, Zabit let him have it for the first 2 rounds. In the 3rd round, Calvin was washing him in the exchanges. And I would love to see that for 5 rounds. People are starting to question Zabit's conditioning because he seems to peter out in the 2nd and 3rd round. So I wonder if that's a matter of his training. If he knows he's going to get those 3 rounds, so his training is more about power and precision and all that. I don't know. I'm not there with the guy training with him, but because he doesn't look like he has to fight too hard to get down to 145. He's a very tall guy, so I don't know, maybe. And he's been a wrestler for a long time, so I don't think he's got a problem with doing weight cuts. But I would love to see Calvin Kattar run it back. And then if he beats Zabit, then give him the opportunity. Give him the opportunity to fight for the belt. I mean, Calvin is just as good as anybody in that division. His boxing is just as good as anyone in the UFC's. His understanding of spacing and closing distance is very good. He's much bigger than most featherweights are. I think he's about 6 foot or 5'10", 5'11". God damn, there's bone showing! Oh my god!
What are you watching? What are you watching? You're horrified. It's like you watch a slaughter.
That was one of the most graphic. They zoomed in on it too. That was one of the most graphic gashes I've ever seen. It's
probably awkward when no one's there to react. It's just like silence and then just gore.
Oh my god, dude! You saw his bone in his leg. I don't know. I missed the leg kick or whatever it was, but I don't know.
So I feel like wasn't Stevens gashed that bad too? Couldn't you see his fucking skull after that elbow?
He had an elbow, but it wasn't too bad. But this dude, I'm telling you, it's got to be a 4-inch gash across his leg, his shin bone is fucking exposed to the front of his leg. You'll see it you'll see it later. That was one of the most gruesome gashes I've ever seen. That was bad. I saw it bleeding during the fight. It was profuse, but when they zoomed in on it, man, if your shin is, I don't know, 3 feet long, fucking 6 inches of that shin is gash. and just open by 2 or 3 inches. It was just white bone. It was crazy, dude. What the fuck? Oh yeah, Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar. I can definitely see him vying for a position, and I think he's got the tools to beat somebody like Brian Ortega. I don't know about Max Holloway, but who knows? The good thing about Calvin Kattar is he's one of these Boston Strong guys, right? So it's the stories behind him for him to be this Rocky Marciano type deal, or not Marciano, he's a real boxer. Rocky Sylvester Stallone underdog stories where he's able to put himself in a position and will himself. What the fuck is happening here? Why is everything so noisy right now? Somebody's driving fucking RC, not RC cars. What's the shit? The fucking motocross cars?
The little dirt bike bros.
Yeah, little dirt bike bros. Shouts out to Philly. Yeah, I would like to, he's got this underdog story behind him. He's very personable. He had a nice heart-filled message at the end of his fight. I would like to see him go ahead and fight for a number 1 position. Have you ever seen him fight before?
Yes. I don't know that there's anything that disqualifies him, right? There's no reason. There's nothing keeping. It's not like the Greg Hardy story where I don't know. There's anything in Greg Hardy's repertoire that allows me to believe he can contend.
Right.
Where, like, there's no reason for me to believe that Calvin Kattar couldn't at least put on a show against any of top 15.
Yeah.
And give himself a pretty good shot.
Right.
I mean, he's also, like, I think he's in the top 10 now, so, like, the only way up is, like, Jeremy Stevens or whatever anyway.
They've been pushing him. Calvin Kattar's had but 3 fights in the last year or so. In the last few hundred days. So that, it leads me to believe that they're ramping him up. He's a Boston guy. I'm sure he's got a great relationship with Dana White. Them and the New England Cartel. Shouts out to Tyson Chartier. One of my first interviews. I got to got him as a coach on here. Yeah, so he's definitely going to be one of those guys that we see later in the future. That's going to be a big star. In the near future, I feel like, especially if they're pushing him on. This is the first card he fought Zabit. Let me pull up Kattar real quick. Calvin Kattar. All right, so that's the first fight of 2020. He had 2 fights in 2019. Zabit, and then he beat Ricardo Lamas, which is pretty good. And then 2018, he had 3
Well,
fights.
It seems like Zabit has to be the next. Not has to, but it makes the most sense because he gets to run that back. Yeah. Zabit is basically he's like a top 2 or 3 contender, I have to imagine now. So you can settle that beef, tell a story, and then whoever wins gets a next shot at Volkanovski.
Right.
Though I also wouldn't mind watching him like fight someone like Rodriguez or
that would be good.
Chan Sung Jung. I think that'd be an interesting fight.
Hey, he's. I would think Yair is a better fight for him in the way that he only has to worry about that one dimension of striking. When you're fighting somebody like Zabit, you're worried about the wrestling. You're worried about the inside clinch work. You're worried about his crazy out of nowhere striking. Whereas Yair, he can mix it up as good and as much as anybody out there. Sound boxing fundamentals, crazy kicks. You know what I mean? When it comes to leg kicks or heel spinning at techniques or elbows or anything like that. He's as dynamic as the bunch is. But you only have to worry about that skill set. You don't have to worry about him Yair's not taking anyone down. So in that regard, I think we would stand. Soraya Eubanks. There she is. She's fighting.
She's back.
She's back. But yeah, I would imagine him fighting Yair Rodriguez would be a little bit of an easier fight. It's funny to even say that out loud because Yair is just a fucking handful anyone to take care of. But I feel like his skill set is less to have to worry about than Zabit. I think. Zabit
if I could like hand pick and choose a fight, like yeah, probably. But like, if I'm trying to find a balance between what's marketable and what would be a fight that justifies giving him the next title shot, I feel like it has to be Zabit. I mean, I think I would not be sad if a Yair Rodriguez fight was next either. But like,
that's tough though. To go and beat Yair, that means you got to beat Yair and then go beat Zabit. If you beat those 2 people back to back, you definitely deserve the number 1.
At that point, yeah. Like who else? Like who can do that? Probably. Right. I don't know that anyone in that league can do both of those back to back.
Right. He's got to fight one of those guys. It wouldn't be fair. I mean, you know what I mean. We don't want to Tony Ferguson the guy where he's got to clear the whole murderer's row and then lose to a fucking guy from the bleachers 10 days or 2 weeks before your fight. You know what I mean? Like, but it is what it is. But yeah, I would like to see him fight. Yeah. Shouts out to Calvin. Yeah. Yeah.
Just like that.
Just like that. So we do it. All right, so Calvin. Then, obviously we talked about the mauling of Jairzinho Rozenstruck. Francis Ngannou has done to Jairzinho what we all thought would happen if he were to win. God damn it. Just fucking unplug my TV. God damn it. But as far as that goes, I mean, can you say that we're surprised? No. But now it kind of begs the question, like, what's next for the heavyweight division? Because Daniel Cormier and Stipe, like, we don't know what's happening there. They should have run it back, but 2 or 3 months ago. I understand that he had some eye surgery and everything, but he's not giving us any feedback, so it leads me to believe, is he just waiting Daniel Cormier out to see if he retires? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand, like, what the holdup is now to even say anything. Maybe now more than ever I understand, because he's a first responder. You know what I mean? He's a fireman. So maybe he's got some things that he's got to take care of on the home front.
Real life shit.
Right.
I don't think that's the issue.
I don't think that's the issue, too, because he's been a fireman this whole time.
Right.
So, I don't know. I don't know what the hang-up is there, but it makes me think, like, does Francis leapfrog him? Do they make an interim belt, and whoever wins the interim, he's got to come and defend it, otherwise the interim is the real champion?
I don't think you can do an interim belt because he's not officially, like, on injured reserve. He's not out for some actual reason. He's just sitting around. Like, if you have a heavyweight title fight without the champion who is, for all intents and purposes, able to defend it, then we've jumped the interim belt shark at this point.
What is normally this,
like we're just making shit up now. I mean, to be fair, the UFC did make up a belt last year, so
they did.
It's
It's
not out of the realm of possibility. But it seems like maybe it's a contract thing. I don't know why these things get held up. Sometimes they're obvious, sometimes they're not. This is one of those, like, I don't see. Besides, I don't really want to fight right now. I don't really know why he would wait to sign. Maybe he's waiting for someone else to show up and make a better fight than him and Cormier. Mm-hmm. Maybe Curtis Blades is the better fight. Maybe there's a conversation working there. Maybe it's a money thing. I have no idea. Maybe it's a COVID thing, which would be an excuse I think you could probably use. In which case, then you could have like an interim belt, because that's like an absence that makes sense. On the same
before you continue, because you just reminded me real quick. I want everyone to make up their fucking mind about Khabib Nurmagomedov already, because it's so annoying for everyone to be like, not everyone, Conor McGregor. For Conor McGregor to be like, your family's full of rats, I hope they all die, and then like his dad gets really sick, and he's like, I'm praying for your father, I hope he's... Like, make up your mind. Do you want him to fucking be a dirtbag, rat-breeding piece of shit? Or are you sad because he's sick now? That's
we knew that McGregor's enmity towards Khabib and that whole squad was for show.
Yeah.
We kind of always knew that. We really knew that when he tried to tell Khabib that in the fight, and Khabib was like, no, I'm going to kill you. And then did, and then tried to jump the fence and kill some other dudes.
Yeah.
So, like, it's always been real for him and not real for Conor. Yeah, and I think Conor forgot that this was the thing that he maybe cultivated, and he's just, like, on normal mode again, just trying to be a bro.
Well, because, like, not even a couple weeks ago, he was like... You know, Khabib's like, hey, I need to go back to my country because that's where my family is, and I don't want to be away from my family in another country. And everyone's like, what a fucking pussy! He's running away from Tony. He's like, hey, I want to go be with my parents. And now that his dad is sick, everyone's like, oh, he wasn't kidding. Oh.
Well, I think everybody was like, oh, you're reacting to the COVID? You're reacting to the virus?
Yeah.
What a dickhead in, like, early March. And then everyone changed their tune in April when they were like, oh, it's killing people.
Right.
I think everyone has had like a whiplash in that. And now, especially in like the fight world, it's flipping backwards back to like, oh, we're stuck in the house. Well, I guess we have to go fight the police because this is a violation of my rights. Right. The fact that I can't open my gym is a violation of my rights.
I should fucking burn the whole country down now as a result.
Right. I should put my gi on and tap and just tap the Constitution into the nation. Or something. I don't know.
There is some poor white woman that was like outside of one of these events in California. He was like, "This is literally slavery,
ma'am."
And it's like, I appreciate your hot take, but no, it is not.
A lot of energy, but
this is literally slavery. She said it.
It's not even figuratively, literally slavery.
It's not. It just isn't.
Because to my understanding, when Spanish and Dutch and French people went to Africa and stole or traded for actual living bodies of human beings, and then
This is
floated them across across several oceans to new worlds. It wasn't to keep them inside and safe from a virus.
Yeah,
I just don't think
air
that's what those boats were.
and government support.
Yeah, I feel like this. I feel like slaves on the slave ships did not get a stimulus check.
Right, at all.
And they weren't.
And
they didn't have to wear a mask when they went outside.
And then when they asked for a stimulus check after the whole thing, after the whole shebang was ended, everyone's like, "Nah, you're good. We're not going to give you any of the shit that we said we're going to give you."
Even though we promised you a stimulus check
in
the form of some land, maybe.
Yeah.
We're actually, I mean, you got the freedom part. Like,
did you try go fucking yourselves for the next 500 years? Because that's what we're gonna. That's the option.
I don't have a check for you, but I do have these really cool things called Jim Crow laws.
I know you'll like them.
Yeah.
Hear me out.
Really, what she should have said is like, "This is literally Jim Crow," because at least it's not that either, but it's closer.
Yeah, it's closer than it's literally slavery.
It's closer than literally slavery.
Because it's literally not slavery. And this there's this page on Instagram, and they have, I think on YouTube they're called No Brakes. I think All Gas No Brakes or something like that. And it's like this very skinny, like very white Ariel Helwani looking man with hair. And he just goes to like these really obscure events. You know how like Eric Andre goes to like the fucking Republican National Convention and like just is just black. He just appears black. Doesn't say anything racially motivated. And
he just has like a mic and kind of stands there.
And then people just assault him. That's essentially what that guy was doing. But he went to like this, these fucking people who were like, cough in my mouth. I don't care about COVID. Apparently, everyone from the South, the Bible Belt, went to California that day.
I don't know why people want to die for this. This isn't
the hill you want to die on?
This just doesn't feel like the right one.
In some regard, though, I feel the government's like, you know what? Let them pull together. We're gonna thin the herd this way.
Yeah, like what if they did die? Though?
Yeah.
Says the government.
Yeah.
Just spitballing. What if they all did die?
Is it the worst thing to have the lowest common denominator die? But these two moms that they pulled off of their couches, these two wine moms. Well, Serdria is looking thick, but she's like obviously like the better technical striker.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just battering this poor woman who's just not trying at all to protect her face. Just refuses to do it almost.
I mean, what does she need a face?
It's like her hands are like, this fight is literally slavery. And she's just getting battered to death right now. She's very weird open guard.
If you invite the punches, you'll actually like make them feel like almost too safe.
Yeah.
It's all mind games.
Yes. I'm bleeding, making me the victor. Oh, shouts out! I forgot to mention the one part about the Calvin Kattar fight. The main reason why I'm bringing it up. Fucking Jeremy Stephens missed weight by like 6 pounds.
Yeah, he weighed at like 150 or something.
Yeah. It's like 150 point something. And then we go on. Oh, wait,
COVID camp wasn't working out for him.
Did you have any hot takes on Francis and Jorizio that you wanted to
No, it went 20 seconds, and that's really all it had to go.
For us to really... I will say Jorizio did land some strikes inside as he was coming in, and I think he was banking on the fact like I'll just catch him coming in. But then I
think he was hoping it would do something.
Yeah,
like I think he clearly planned for this.
Yeah,
like he was going to like
because he was on the when he landed with those punches, he was on the money, on the chin. Francis is a Terminator. Not how it worked out.
It just so happens that like the Black Panther is infused with magical supernatural abilities.
Yeah.
And he was fighting for the sake of his people.
Right. Wakanda forever.
And I just had to knock that man the fuck out.
He had to do it for the gram.
And that makes what, like 4 straight knockouts for this man?
4 fights with 4 knockouts, I believe, in the first 20 seconds of the fight.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's unreal.
Like, are you like, this is a lot.
It is a lot.
Like,
how do you improve as a fighter past that? Like, what do you do?
Like,
what more do you do?
It's not since maybe, Shane Carwin, maybe? Has there been a fighter who's just like, what the fuck do I do? Because Shane Carwin knocked like everybody the fuck out,
Right.
Up until Lesnar.
Right.
And then Lesnar choked him out, and then he, I think, lost to like Velasquez or Dos Anjos, and then his back was all fucked up. He couldn't fight anymore. But like, there hasn't been someone who's like as inevitable and like devastating as Ngannou in a long time.
Anthony Joshua is the last. Anthony Johnson is the last person that I can.
Yeah, Anthony Johnson again. Yeah, he had a run for years where it's like, this is gonna be bad.
And Rosenstruck was the other one. I'm like, hey, we haven't seen guys like this in a minute. Skilled, high power guys. And Anthony Johnson is nowhere to be found, and Rosenstruck is dead. So
yeah, rest his soul.
There can only be one. He's truly the Highlander of the heavyweight division.
It's true.
No hot takes there. So we move on to Henry Cejudo and Dominic Cruz. Obviously, the big headline of this fight being he defends his bantamweight title and then he retires immediately.
What they call
a dine and dash where I'm from.
Yeah.
And
if it's a real move, it's the right move in my opinion.
I don't think it's real. But I
don't think it's real either. But
if it is, hey, that's the way to do it. I mean, it doesn't get more picture perfect than that. Get yourself in the fucking books, the record books. There's only one other person that's done what Henry Cejudo's done, and that's Daniel Cormier. No other double champs in the world or in the UFC. I don't know about the world. In the
There's
UFC,
like one. The only other double champs I can think of is what's his name in Bellator, who I can't even think of his name.
That's the other guy, Patricia Pitbull, is another guy that trains under with Henry Cejudo's trainer, right. Captain America's. But we can't say it, and we can't say what's his name. Who's the guy that fucking had a whole shtick about it in Bellator, the heavyweight that is magically not. He fought Czech Congo. Ryan Bader.
Yeah,
can't say about Ryan Bader because he technically never fought and was never champion. Cejudo in the UFC is the only other person in the world to defend both of his titles. So with Daniel Cormier, so he puts himself up there in Hall of Fame status in that way. I believe. I mean he should be a Hall of Famer. He beats Mighty Mouse. I think he lost to Mighty Mouse, but he beats Mighty Mouse on paper. Then he goes up, beats TJ Dillashaw. Then he beats Marlon Moraes, who is really good. Essentially the Jose Aldo of 135. Beats Jose Aldo. Oh, I'm sorry, no, that's Marlon Moraes. Marlon Moraes beats Jose Aldo. Henry Cejudo wanted to fight Jose Aldo, but that fight didn't come to fruition. Then he beats one of the greatest of all time in Dominic Cruz. So, I mean, who else does he beat? He beat a bunch of people to get to the position he was at 125, and then he beats 2-3 really high-level guys in bantamweight, and then he sets into the sunset. He
basically murders the flyweight division.
Yeah.
After he kills TJ Dillashaw.
Right.
He fought Sergio Pettis when he was a thing.
Yes.
Back in 2016, 17.
Sergio Pettis fights in Bellator now.
That's a trajectory heat check. I guess really the important question is he's 33. He's won against everyone he's had to. What is there left to do? And the answer is nothing. The answer is there are still fights you can take that be interesting to watch, but why does he have to take them?
Right. He's I completely understand his position because he's got the chips in his court. So I'm sure he can go up and fight someone at 145, but why would I do that for not $2 million? You know what I mean?
That's the most important part.
Yeah.
No one's paying a bantamweight, flyweight, featherweight big money.
Right.
Whether they should or shouldn't. This is the reason Mighty Mouse left. He's the most impressive flyweight to ever live, maybe. Yeah. And they were like, we're not giving you anything.
Right.
And if you'll do that to maybe the best fighter you had, because of their size, because you know that translates that viewers don't want to watch small people, just generally speaking, for whatever reason, then what's Henry Cejudo going to do? Why fight for a fraction of what Greg Hardy could show up and make?
Right.
Or Overeem can show up and make. Overeem's been 50-50 for the better part of this decade.
Well, I mean,
and he makes $1 million in a card just to show up. Like
Demetrius Johnson saw the opportunity and took it. I mean, like, you know what I mean? He loses. He's like, I mean, I could go back, but like, why would I do that when I can get 6 figures for fighting people I've never fought before?
Right.
Henry Cejudo might very well just do the same thing, but he likes living in America and not fighting in Asia. So,
which is like, that's why I think this isn't necessarily this could be a retirement from the UFC, but maybe not from combat sports. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even sure. Like, if Jose Aldo showed up and Dana White's like, yes, I'll pay you both, like, you know, real racks to like fight.
Yeah.
It might be worth coming back, but like, Henry can do plenty of things that aren't this. I mean, maybe not talk because he's like the worst.
I'd say his cringe is getting better.
Well, I think he's got his hands around it a little more.
Yeah.
He tried to fight women for a long time.
He did.
Didn't work out for him.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you ask Greg Hardy, it might help out his career. So.
True.
Just think about it.
True.
Henry, just think about it.
I think
Valentina Shevchenko embarrass her on national airwaves.
I think the problem is, what if she embarrasses him?
Nope. I'm sorry, but I thought maybe that would be the case because he's so small. But when I watched him brutalize Marlon Morales and then Dominic Cruz, I was like, maybe no.
I don't think Valentina is the woman who would beat him. I think Weili Zhang could beat him. I think Amanda Nunes could beat him.
I don't think Weili could do it either. I just don't.
I think she's just as strong as Henry Cejudo.
As a wrestler?
Oh yeah. No, I don't. I think Henry Cejudo is a better wrestler.
But that's what I'm saying. If he gets put in any danger, he's just gonna take her down, and she's not gonna know what to do. She's never fought anyone. Say again.
She's probably never fought. Well, that's not true. I don't know what she's fought. She's probably trained with people who are bigger than Henry Cejudo.
Chinese people in
just giant
Chinese Olympic steroid program.
Yeah, just like completely farm to table fucking Chinese Olympic wrestlers probably.
Yeah, she was fighting in the underground circuits for a while.
Yeah. Just like Streets of Rage shit, just hitting people with pipes or whatever.
No, I don't think Weili could do it either. I honestly don't think there's any. The only one that I think could is maybe Cyborg.
I think Cyborg and Nunez could wash Cejudo.
Yeah.
I don't know that they could. I don't think Cyborg could out-wrestle. Well, maybe. I don't think Cyborg could out-wrestle. I'm not confident Cyborg could out-wrestle Cejudo.
Yeah.
I think Amanda could out-sprawl Cejudo and just knock the shit out of him.
I think she could stand him up once and then pop him. For sure.
I would like if you were just talking about like a kickboxing match. I think Holly Holm could beat him.
Yeah, I think she could beat him.
Jermaine could probably beat him
points because you're not gonna be able to clinch her.
Right.
So
well, you can, but not very long.
Yeah.
And like, is that a clinch you want to be in? A woman who's almost 6 feet tall. Like,
right. Exactly. Yeah, she would teep the shit out of him and leg kick him the whole time. But I will say that I'm very impressed with Henry Cejudo's ability to strike as of recent. Yeah. Very good.
I don't know what he does now. Like, I don't know that. Like, is Vince McMahon knocking on his door? Probably not.
No, probably not.
But like, he also could just like rest on his riches.
He says real estate is his next venture. So
makes sense. Slap his name on some shit.
Yeah.
Go back. You know, you can go back to the homeland and buy some shit. Be Lord and Savior there, like Anderson Silva did. Lots of opportunities, and do it while your brain isn't scrambled eggs. Even better.
Well, luckily for him, he hasn't been in a lot of fights that have damaged him a lot. So,
that's true. But you never know when the next one could be that one.
Yeah, that's why you get out, make your bag, and make something of it, make your platform out of it. And I think he's got the ability to do that. I think his main thing, and I generally do believe him. I think he does want to start a family. I think he does want to go ahead and carve his niche in the world outside of fighting, because he's been in combat sports since he was 11 years old, probably younger. So, he's 33 years old. He probably still has a couple, 2 or 3 or 4, maybe even 5 more fights left in him. But take some time off. He's been working to keep the flyweight division alive for almost 3 or 4 years by himself, alone. He's been taking fights every year, hardest, most difficult fights you can put out there. He's marketing himself. He's going out there being the cringe guy. He's doing the most with his platform. Take some time off. He's clearly made his money. He's made his pay-per-view points. I respect the move. I respect it.
There's no reason.
I don't think it's real though. I think he will be back.
I don't think it's real either, but there's no reason to. I don't know what the next move would be. So it's hard to theory craft like what this could be a play or like a ploy for.
Right.
But
It might not
reality,
be a play for anything. It might be a play for
just wait for something new, like
right.
GSP.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing to do because like you can play the waiting game all you want for a division that they don't even really know if they're going to keep in the flyweights.
Mm-hmm.
In bantamweight, there's a lot of people that are going to be in the top 5, top 10. They're going to be fighting consistently to get to the top. So let that settle. And then he never lost. So technically he can come back and challenge for the belt whenever he comes back.
It's true. I mean, we'll see if that's how it works. I don't see why it wouldn't be, but I don't know what this looks like in 2022 or whatever. Right. He does what we always say you should do. If you leave when you still can, and while shit's fine. Yeah. Shit's fine. Leave. It's fine.
It's functioning, and you've got enough money in your bank account to survive right now.
Don't be out here like Derek Lewis making me wish you just leave. You could go somewhere else. Preserve what I like about you, which is your ability to troll.
Yeah. Oh my god, they beat this woman to death. Oh, they're talking shit to each other. She doesn't know where she's at, though. Soraya beat that woman to death. To just talk about the fight for a second, and why I guess it would be shocking for some people to watch his skill level leave. He picks apart Dominic Cruz. And Dominic is much bigger than he is by 5-6 inches. He was leg kicking the shit out of him. He was working head movement. He was beating him in the clinch. He was beating him in the wrestling exchanges. You know, some people think the TKO was a little short. The call was a little early. I don't think that. I was watching it in real time. Yeah, he was getting up, but Henry again, they said the same thing about TJ Dillashaw when he got clanged and he was on the floor. Henry Cejudo is an Olympic gold medalist. If you end up on the floor and he presses you against the gate, there's really not much more you can do. The only reason why he was able to get up a little bit is because he saw the ref coming in. Mm-hmm. He saw the ref coming in. The ref was already there. That's how he was able to create any type of space to get up on the cage. He was pinned against the floor. His head was skipping on the floor. I mean, like, he was getting beat. Like, there's not much more you can tell me to change my mind. I mean, yeah, you want to give your guys a fighting chance and yada, 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 but I get it. But don't put yourself into positions where you're face down on the fucking floor and your head is skipping on the floor and this fucking 5'3" little gorilla is pouncing on your head and pounding your
this
stomach.
Man whose entire life is pinning you against things and punching your face in is about to do that. Yeah. Like, that's the next step.
Right. And then Dominic Cruz had the gall to be like, the guy's name, I think it's Keith Peterson.
Keith Peterson.
Yeah,
he smelled like drugs and alcohol or whatever.
He smelled like alcohol and cigarettes. Yeah, he smelled like cigarettes and alcohol. And Keith was like, I was just trying to stop you from getting CE, but I guess not. I guess that's not allowed. I mean, it is what it is. Like, people say wild shit when they lose. I get it. I understand.
Yeah. And I don't know why. I mean, I do know why.
Face. You want to save face. Yeah. You're mad.
But here's the thing. You tweet your thing. You're mad. Keith Peterson hits you with the wild meme, like, retort.
Yeah.
It's over. Let Twitter fucking roast you for 12 hours and just move past it. Don't keep happening. No. Don't keep doing this.
And then
we all saw the fight.
Right. And then Herb was like, "Hey, no, I feel you, Dominic, but
he
didn't drink and he didn't smoke. We were on him all day, so unless he like 2 minutes before the fight, he's like, "Oh, my nerves are crazy right now. Let me hit the cigarette real quick and I'll fit the vodka." Yeah, not the way, Dominic Cruz kind of alluded that he wanted to retire if he had won, like he's like, if I won, I would have been in the same position.
Now he can't.
Now he can't. So now he's got to fight someone else for the belt.
He's going to fall into the trap of fighting for getting that last good one.
Yeah.
Getting
the last good one in.
It's not how this happens.
Yeah. We've all seen it. We've seen it happen before. Shouts out to Henry Cejudo. Bringing home the bag and getting the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
Any hot takes?
From that fight? No. I
Justin?
feel like that was relatively straightforward. Like, outside of the Well, the stoppage, but I don't think was controversial.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't
think
think
it was it was pretty back and forth, but I feel like Henry was at the end, beginning and end of every of those exchanges,
right.
Especially like after the contact they had, like where it was like maybe someone just headbutting concussed by accident.
Yeah, I saw it. That was completely by accident. They did in slow motion, and they're both wrestlers, so they're both looking at their opportunity to take a shot, and they both took a shot at the same time because they're I will say this hot take for Dominic Cruz: he can still compete at a high level.
Yeah,
I still would like to see him fight. Still, it would be cool to see him fight T.J. Dillashaw next year or something. The non-steroid bowl. And then, main event, Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson. I started most of these hot takes. Why don't you tell me, you start off with your hot take first.
So we found out that Tony Ferguson broke his orbital.
Yes.
In that fight, which is, what I hear, is one of the most painful injuries you can get.
Yeah.
I watched that dude's brain, I think I watched it restart.
Yeah.
And then, shut off again, it's in a boot loop.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a man about to die.
Yeah, I heard the Windows 95 opening his hand.
Right. It went straight to safe mode. Yeah. And I was like, that's not good.
Don't say straight to safe mode. Yeah, he got popped on the chin. I'm sorry, he got popped right on the nose, towards the end, right before the TKO. And it was, you hate to see it. Taking the words from Jarrett. Yeah,
well, it really sucks. I mean, because this fight was... early on, Ferguson was using pretty good movement to not get hit very hard until immediately right in the middle of the first round got hit very hard, and the shit just changed. It felt automatically and even the next round they attempted to sort of trade again, but Gaethje had the fucking follow up left hooks locked in at that point, and it didn't seem to be a real recourse for Ferguson.
Right.
But super sucks for Ferguson specifically is that Khabib fight's probably not happening now.
Yeah.
He spent the last 12 fights making sure he was winning so that he could make this fight happen, and it's been canceled 5 times, and now it's probably not going to happen.
That probably will never happen. Khabib would have to lose.
He'd have to lose, but I don't think it's going to happen either.
Yeah.
Of course, you never know.
Tony would have to fight back up the rung, and which he says he's willing to do, but for how long? How long is he willing to do that for?
This is the man who he has fought everyone.
Yeah.
He'd have to fight everyone again.
He would have to run it back with Justin Gaethje, which I do think is winnable because he was eating Justin alive for those 2 first rounds.
Yeah.
But it just kind of puts Justin in a fast track to fight either Conor or Khabib.
Which you wanted. So I guess congratulations.
I don't know. I don't know what's next for Tony. Who does Tony fight next?
Surgery is next for Tony.
Surgery's next. So he's going to be out for a year.
Yeah.
Which, you know what, though, at the same time, take the time, dude. Come on. He's been fighting,
for him,
fights.
he doesn't have the rush back to this. I think I think his next fight back is going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Depending on who's, top 5 at the time, a win over them could put him right back in this position. Depending on how many fights Khabib has left. I don't know that Khabib's going to be fighting for too much longer. He probably, he fights once a year, I feel now. Who knows what Khabib's doing 2 years from now.
Right. He might call it quits after 30. Or
there's no reason. He's also just been fighting forever.
Yeah.
The GSP he's getting inducted in the Hall of Fame soon, right?
He is, but that doesn't mean he can't fight.
Doesn't mean he can't fight, but that seems to be a signal to me that he might not be interested in coming back.
I don't know, man. There's been a lot of rumors. Him waiting for an opportunity to fight Conor or Khabib.
I feel like the Conor rumor's been around, and I think he almost took him. He was going to fight Conor at some point, but the money wasn't right. I think.
Right, the money wasn't right, and I don't think they could have secured a venue with the main event for him. I think the problem with him and I think Conor as well was that they wanted him to be a co-main.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, why?
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. But GSP has been showing he's like been doing weight cuts water cuts and all this other stuff, and fasting and intermittent fasting to stay at 155. And there's been barbs between him and fighters looking to get that fight. So anything's possible. I think he might have one more left in him.
I think it's possible. I wonder what the appetite. I mean, the appetite for the consumer is there. I think anyone would buy a GSP fight.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he could win over any of these people, and it would change my opinion about GSP at all.
Yeah.
He's already solidified Mount Rushmore as GOAT of this shit. Yeah. I don't know that he needs to do anything else to prove that, whether he wins or loses. It also could just be, Tim testing the waters in the same way I think Tyson releasing boxing videos is him testing the waters.
Right.
I don't know that.
No, Tyson's back. He's coming back.
He says he's coming back. We don't have an opponent, and I hear Bare Knuckles. I hear Bare Knuckles a thing, right?
Yeah, they're talking about him and Shannon Briggs fighting for bare knuckle fighting. I think they were waiting on one other thing, but they're supposed to do it there. They're supposed to be fighting bare knuckle, Shannon Briggs.
Yeah, it sounds like a mistake.
I don't think so. I'll watch it.
I've watched mistakes. That's fine.
Yeah. Don't ruin this for the rest of us, okay?
We have to stop wanting these old people who are great to come back and be great again. That's not how this works.
Mike Tyson, great again.
Sometimes you're just fucking old.
Yeah.
And you can look great doing the Mike Tyson shit against pads of people who aren't fighting back.
Yeah.
But here's the problem: we learned around the middle of the '90s that sometimes that Mike Tyson shit doesn't work.
You don't think he's got what it takes to be Shannon Briggs though?
I think maybe. Shannon Briggs doesn't look very very impressive as a dude in his early, I think late.
He's the
late
same age,
40s.
Aren't they?
I think Tyson's 50, right? 50 exactly. I think Shannon Briggs is 47, 48. No,
they're around there. They're comparable in age, I will say.
And
the over under for their age is not too high in either direction.
I can't think. I remember seeing a picture of Shannon Briggs a year ago, and I'm like, all right, well, that's still Shannon Briggs, I guess.
Yeah, they're both just jacked up on steroids. No one's going to talk about that part of it, though.
I don't know. I haven't seen any technique from Shannon Briggs. You might just beat the shit out of him, but what's that? What is that? That does literally the only one thing, and that's just you killed a guy. So we're excited. I'm happy to see it.
The big draw for this is supposed to be at a charity event. I think Tyson had said he'd come back, for XYZ dollars towards charity, and I think that's the big thing. I respect Mike Tyson and what he's become as a person since he was younger years. I can't say that because I grew up looking at him or anything like that, but just viewing what he was and what he is now, he seems to be a lot more into philanthropy, and he seems to be a lot more into helping people. So,
well, he's going on a 20-year penance tour.
Yeah, right.
But
I respect the move, though. You know what I mean?
It's pure exhibition, which is fine. Exhibitions are fine. It's not I wouldn't watch that fight. It's just I don't know that I can't find myself being excited to watch that fight because it's 50-year-old Mike Tyson versus 50-year-old.
You can't be excited about just about anything, though.
I would be more excited about a fight with stakes.
When's the last time you get excited about something, huh? Tell me.
Well, I was excited about. Maybe I was optimistic about the food I ordered, and it turns out it's the wrong order anyway. So no. That's what I get.
And he didn't even get excited for the food that he liked. He said he chose optimistic. He chose the word optimistic in the food that he ordered with his own brain.
No one's getting excited about a Mexican torta with pork. It's a sandwich.
No one's excited about that.
It's a sandwich in any language.
You know what country of people we're talking to right now? Everyone gets excited about food here. Is it just you?
I feel like only people who get excited about random sandwiches are same people who get excited about watching Mike Tyson do what we know you can do, which is kill old people.
Well, sir,
if Mike Tyson,
if you mean people, you mean myself, then yes, I am people.
If you wanted to see some exciting Mike Tyson shit, let's do what was the plot of the fifth Rocky movie? Not fifth, Rocky Balboa, the sixth one, where he's a restaurant owner. And then someone runs a simulation and is can you beat Antonio Tarver or some shit? Yeah. Was it Antonio Tarver? Who played Who played the guy? Hold on.
remember.
I gotta go Google this. It was Balboa, I believe.
Vince
It's the name of the movie.
St. Preux fights today too, by the way. Fights Ben Rothwell.
Yikes. Right, Rocky Balboa. Here we go. The 6th movie. He fights Antonio Tarver plays Mason the Line Dixon. Because someone on ESPN does a simulation. What if could Rocky at his prime beat Mason Dixon right now, who seems to be at his prime? And for some reason, someone approaches Rocky, finds him in his fucking Italian restaurant, and is like, "Yo, would you like to fight you 60-year-old man with brain disease?" And he was like, "Yes." And his son was like, "Stop doing this.
You're going to die.
You fucking idiot."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I can't because I'm an idiot." And
that sounds about right.
I think they fight to a draw or some shit. Like, if we're gonna do some stupid exhibition shit, that's what I want to see.
Yeah, I want him to fight.
I guess the problem
I want him to fight Tenshin Nasukawa
the problem with that, I guess, is now his choices are like Tyson Fury. I don't want to see that fight because that's how you watch Mike Tyson get killed. Like,
yeah. I don't think he'll get killed.
Against Tyson Fury, I think he'd get
killed. Oh, against Tyson Fury? Yeah, I think he would kill him.
Deontay Wilder, I think he'd be killed.
I meant Shannon Briggs.
Briggs, no. Shannon's going to be fine. It's going to be a fine fight for him and Shannon.
Yeah. That was about right where I would place it. And you know what? There's intrigue behind that because there's been like a resurgence of Shannon Briggs, like hype video nonsense. So, hold on. I'm going to get a water real quick. I'll be right back. Got waters in the room. Mike Johnson's coming up right now. He's going to be fighting Thiago Moises?
Sure.
Moise?
Sure. I haven't read this article. I'm going to save it so I can read it later because it sounds like me and Kevin Iole have the connection here.
Kevin Iole just said something on Twitter on my screen.
There's a headline: "Why a Mike Tyson comeback is a horrible idea."
My boxing coach was like, he can't just. Him and one other person was like, Shannon Briggs is winning that fight, and I was like, Coach, I thought he was gonna be like a long, in-depth answer. I said, Coach, why did you and one other person, the only people after 30 votes? Like, how many? Why? Can you give me a reason why? He's like, he can't just come back from nowhere out of the blue and beat Shannon Briggs. that was his reasoning. And I was like, fair
scientific.
Enough. Yeah. There's nothing in his brain that allowed him to believe that. But he was also wrong about Pali Malignaggi beating the goat Artem Lobov. So.
Fair.
As everyone else was.
That was a more interesting fight because, not that there's stakes, but it's like, who the fuck knows who would win that fight? Who the fuck cares, really? No one, but at least it'll be competitive. It doesn't feel like someone's going to die afterwards.
Yeah. You're incorrect. Everyone cared about that because everyone watched it. So
for a person who was, 2-3 before he was retired,
who?
Tyson.
Tyson? Oh. Wait, what?
Mike Tyson lost his last. He was retired.
His last few fights he lost. Yeah.
4 or 5. He lost his last 3 fights. Why? Everyone who remembers Tyson from the 80s.
Yeah.
And early 90s. No one remembers the Tyson that then existed for 10 years.
Yeah.
Afterwards, after he got out of prison, he was a completely different fighter.
Yeah.
And has been since.
Yeah.
Because he's a completely different dude.
Yeah,
maybe part of why he was so incredibly ridiculous in the ring is because he was a different kind of monster then.
Right. That seems to be the wave.
Now he's pacified himself. He raises pigeons and shit.
Bro,
he's good.
Don't talk shit on the pigeons like that, all right?
He's good now.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the dude who's going to excite you.
Just someone should spike his drink with cocaine or something.
Like, would I fight him in a grocery store?
No.
No. I wouldn't fight him in an exhibition if someone called me and wanted to do a charity event with him. That's going to be a no.
You know who would?
Shannon Briggs.
Tenshin Nagasawa. Let's make it happen. Make that
There's a
real
connection
money.
there. Like, isn't a Mayweather one of Shannon Briggs's trainers?
I don't know, but Henry Cejudo should be doing that.
Going to
Go to Riot. They'll pay you whatever you want, dude. Just fucking go there.
if he wants money, like if he just wants to beat the shit out of someone without much effort, he can just stay here.
Yeah. Everyone sleeps on Ryzen. People go to Ryzen thinking it's just going to be a bunch of Bellator dudes because they have, like, Gabby Garcia beat up old women. But, like, they have some actual killers there. Someone from their organization beat Darian Caldwell once in Ryzen and once in Bellator. within a 3-month span.
I feel like that's always been the case, though. Like, maybe not in Ryzen specifically, but like even Pride, like they had Bob Sapp around for the fucking clown shows, but like there were still killers over there.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely had some shooters there for sure. And Darren Caldwell was like, damn, get lumped up, and then out wrestled. He out wrestled D1 fucking superstar wrestling athlete Darren Caldwell. When I talk about Darren Caldwell to some of my wrestling buddies, I'm like, they're like, yeah, he's one of the best grapplers from his class at the time when he was in school. Got choked the fuck out 2 times. Shouts out to Japan and shit. So all right, so yeah, Justin Gaethje defeats Tony. I mean, I had Tony. I thought Tony was gonna win it. Justin Gaethje.
I think everybody had. I think the strong money was Tony when.
Yeah, Justin was like, I got like a good 3 rounds in me, and everyone's like, well, well then, yeah, for him to, I would have never in a million years would have ever thought to say that he was going to go out there and outstrike him, hit him as hard as I've ever seen him hit anybody before, truthfully, and then go ahead and get the TKO in the last round. It was a lot of unknowns happening all at once, I will say.
He dropped him at the end of that second round.
Yeah.
That's when things were like real shaky.
Yeah.
And round 3, where it looked like is where the break happened, probably.
Yeah. I would have never in a million years thought Justin Gaethje would go in there and break Tony Ferguson in the way he did, which was like essentially how Tony likes to fight, is standing up in front of people. If you'll let him, like he's got all these other tools, which is why the appeal was there for Khabib, was because we knew that I wasn't going to get too crazy on the feet because of Khabib's limited skill set with striking. And I say limited in the way that he's a super athlete and he can strike. Like, obviously, he's not a bad kickboxer. But that's not his strong suit. His strong suit is Sambo. And for him to go out there and just, pick him apart. Like, we were like, the big intrigue with him and Khabib is like, if it gets dicey for Khabib, he takes it to the floor, then we're going to see something interesting out of Tony off of his back. I would have never thought that Justin was going to get frustrated or frustrate Tony to the point where he can't even do any of his wrestling. I mean, he tried some of those unorthodox takedowns, where he tried to do the rolly shit and grab a leg for a heel hook.
The rolly shit.
Yeah, there's like some technical term for it, and I learned what it was on UFC, but I immediately forgot it. But we really saw a very limited mobility out of Tony. Like, Tony didn't really throw any of the strikes that we're used to see him throw. He stood in there and tried to do just like it turned into a straight up boxing match. We didn't see too many leg kicks. We didn't see too many head kicks. We didn't see too many elbows out of Tony. We didn't see him cut a lot of angles. It seems like he felt the power of Justin early on and respected his power to the point where it limited his game plan a little bit, in my opinion, at least.
I think it's possible. I think another possibility is he was just injured. Like, he hit him he hit him where it wasn't like a respect thing out of like agency. It was like, your eyes like slowly closing and it's not going to open again. So I needed to adapt around like not being able to see out of the side of your face, and like maybe he just couldn't adapt to that.
Right. Yeah. Strange things, but I guess there's stranger things like being locked in your house for months.
Or Fight Island, whenever that happens.
Yeah, what's the deal with Fight Island? I keep hearing people talk about it like it's Santa. You know what I mean?
Or I keep hearing it being talked about like it's like a thing that's still happening. Like,
yeah.
It seemed to be like a thing that was floated because there was no alternative.
Yeah,
but now that there is,
for international fights, that seems to be the problem because it doesn't seem like if you're out of the country, you can get in the country. I think they're holding this island for the prospect of an international fight. So the only thing that I can surmise is that they're waiting till they get enough international yeses to make a card to warrant using the island. But on the other hand, Dana White himself said that they had leased this island for 20 weeks. So why not use it to its fullest potential? Maybe they have something worked out where maybe an event costs an exorbitant amount of money to have on the island. So maybe they just leased it for the 20 days to hold only a few events in mind and not just abuse it as much as they can. Maybe they can only afford a certain amount of uses out of it or something. I don't know. I assume that just through a logistical standpoint, to bring separate everything, separate, what was it? Treadmills, I heard, separate saunas. They had every fight team that signed up for this event in Florida received a separate treadmill, a separate or some sort of workout set to keep them in their room, a separate sauna inside of their room, a portable sauna. They had to get tested.
So it's like Firefest. It sounds like.
Yeah. Well, they gave them all of those things, but in Firefest, they never, they got, like, government cheese on bread. And, like, they're like, my favorite thing about the whole Firefest is, like, all the white people are like, no, we have to be poor for, like, 2 days, and I didn't bring sunscreen. It could have been way worse than that. If there had been, like, a storm or a hurricane, I feel like someone would have probably died.
Well, I think the problem was, like, there was a storm. Or it wasn't, like, a bad storm. It was rain.
Yeah.
And that's when it all went feral.
Yeah. Right.
I think it's probably cheaper to just have a lease. Like, that's a sunk cost. Like, you have to have the island.
Yeah.
So you might as well, pay for the island. But, yeah, like you mentioned, like, the cost of flying an entire fight staff, which includes camera people and judges and all the other techs that work backstage, anyone who needs to get like AV things working, like people who liaison between the network and the company, hosts, all that kind of shit together and get social media going and all that kind of stuff, all in the places they need to be. It's probably exorbitantly expensive. Then making sure they all have passports to do so. Yeah. Like, it's a lot.
And
get work visas for everyone.
And, yes. And I would imagine this. For something like Florida, if someone falls off the card, they had stacked enough people on the card where they can push someone up, right? So Jacare Souza was pulled out of the card. He was supposed to fight, but he was pulled off. They had stacked enough people in the undercard for them to push up the one person. If you suffer enough losses where it's like the COVID is in 1 or 2 fighters, I would assume that they would have some backup rosters on an island. Because you can't necessarily fly anyone out from America on short notice to come to the island, probably. I'm assuming. Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know where it's at. But I would assume that they would have some people there, like maybe a 1 or 2 extra people on that card, so that if something were to happen, they could bump up the card and keep the time frame going on the main card versus the prelim. So that means you would have to have all of these teams here from all over the world.
I wonder how many of those rules apply, though. Like, clearly this is unorthodox. Like, I don't know how many of your, sports partnerships need to be heated in the same manner in order for make this shit work. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure ESPN would understand if your pay-per-view doesn't go the same length as it normally does because of the extraneous circumstances in which you're running this pay-per-view.
Right.
But I don't sit in those rooms and make those decisions. So
yes, you do, Jared. Don't fucking lie to the people anymore. All right. Expose.
If I was, do you think I would spend and make it a point to spend like significant time on the show to shit on Dana White as often as possible?
Yes, I think
with my name and shit all over this.
I think you're a shill, Jared. I think you're working for Dana White this whole time to make it look less.
If anything, I'm working for Scott Coker.
Yeah,
because he doesn't give a fuck.
He needs.
And he probably wouldn't even know him. He wouldn't even know him on the payroll.
Right. Fucking second round starts. Homeboy comes in like a banshee because he's like, I'm done striking with Michael Johnson because I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, because that was always a bad idea.
Yeah, immediately goes for the takedown, gets the knee bar, and I'm pretty sure he tears his knee.
Nice.
Within 30 seconds of the fight.
Great move.
Yeah, he's like, why am I doing this strikey shit with Michael Johnson, who's been with Henry Hoofed, and that's all they do all day. Yeah. Shouts out to Justin Gaethje. Yeah, so Fight Island has been one thing that I've been hearing lots of people talk about. They're like, dude, it exists. You just can't see it. Okay. It's happening. It's out there. And it's like, all right. It's like, we won't at you even ask, and they'll bring it up. Fight Island's real. It's like, all right, dude. What more do... I'll believe it when I see the card there. I mean, like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, I think Colby Covington's trying to get a rematch on Fight Island.
Against Kamaru?
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I love that.
I want to see
that
another...
Colby Covington is literally Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Johnny Cage.
All right, Kamaru. Like, if I want to see... I do want to see Colby Covington get hit with, like, the Wrath of the Slave Ships again.
Every one, bro? Every slave ship?
That's all of them.
Wrath of the Slave Ship. This is so out of control.
That's what I... So, like, please, make it happen.
Right. Andre Arlovsky is about to fight some guy named Felipe Lins, so I hope you're ready for that, America.
Great. I don't think there's any more, like, actual UFC news. Except for the fact it just, like, fights every couple fucking days, apparently.
Connor was talking about fighting in July. He says there's supposed to be an interim event. Not an interim event, a lightweight title bout in July.
Yeah, but...
Now, whether or not that's true is, up to Dana, but what I'm saying is, like, that's showing me he's willing to fight in July at the very least. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, we could see a Conor fight soon, probably. But who does that mean? Does that mean Khabib comes to an international fight? So, and I've heard this. I've heard Jorge as well be thrown into the mix as a fight for Kamaru Usman. So maybe they have like another crazy super card on Fight Island if it exists out there.
Maybe. I mean, also that could happen, but also Paulie Malignani could show up with Fight Island and with a steel chair and call someone out. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, he as far as his Twitter account is concerned, Conor McGregor believes he's fighting in July. Yeah. We don't know who that is. Like, and until that's real, it's hard to be excited for it. I think there's a limited amount of fights that make sense. It seems to me it would be a title fight. Like, I don't know why you would just waste time and not just give him the title fight at this point. Like, that's what we're here for, right?
Right.
But yeah, a lot of things feel like not real enough to even like acknowledge as real yet.
Right.
So July feels like 3 years away. So I'm just going to wait for that to happen. Wait for it to be a thing that gets really reported, has a real card, blah, 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 blah. Right now, just trusting Conor McGregor's word for it isn't like a strategy I think I'm going to go with. I feel pretty solid in that strategy too.
I feel like we've done this before and he's always beat us in some regard.
Usually. But that's usually because he's talking about who he's going to beat.
Right. Not
like that he's going to fight at all, which is something that he only has partial control over.
Right. Big facts. But that being said, time will tell. Shouts out to Bob Marley. I think Amanda Nunes is supposed to fight soon.
250.
215. For
250.
Oh,
that's
250.
In June, I think.
Right. I mean, that still needs to get filled up. So I'm gonna tell you right now. As much as I love Amanda Nunes, no one's hopping over themselves to watch her fight Felicia Spencer. Like, it's just
no, especially who's gonna be pumped to watch the 3-minute fight?
Right.
Not this guy.
Right. I don't even think it'll last that long.
I think it might.
Literally during Felicia Spencer's highlight tape, they like cut her off. Here's her fighting against a power striker, and it's just Cyborg just beating her to death. And it's like, all right. So like, what are we?
If you want to see that again,
but faster.
I say that, and Felicia Spencer's probably gonna do some dumb shit like win.
Yeah.
I'll be very confused.
I'll be very confused because I don't think she's got any of the tools that are needed
Nope.
to beat Amanda Nunes at all. Like,
The only tool you need is like to have your head encased in adamantium. Like,
yeah. Like prior to this fight. Oh, they're showing her head kicking poor Holly Holm.
womp womp.
Womp womp womp. I'm actually kind of excited to see Ben Rothwell and Ovince St. Preux fight because I know they're just gonna beat each other to death and get tired in the first round. So that'll be funny.
Well, Vincent Poirier is interesting because he's moving up to heavyweight to do so.
Yeah.
Which is a choice.
I've heard Chael Sonnen say that usually that's an indication that people don't want to work hard anymore. So it kind of begs the question, like, do they want to do this anymore? So it's a good take. Like,
it's a take. I think the real context of the take is like, what were you going to do in 205?
Yeah, I mean, I think
because it wasn't going to be John Jones.
Well, I think early in his career they thought that was going to be the thing.
Yeah, they thought he was going to be Izzy, and that didn't work out.
Right. And John Jones even said that he was really scared of him when he came in there, but then he was like, wait a minute, he doesn't know what he's doing. And they just started picking him apart.
This man's a child.
Yeah.
And I'm on cocaine.
Yeah. And this is Jackass. Bring, ding, ding, ding. What do you think is going to happen with Johnny Jones, huh?
Nothing. The UFC already said they weren't punishing him.
Yeah.
He's just going to fucking keep pushing.
Right.
Maybe keep his guns out of his car.
That sounds like a move.
Or maybe not. Because we
live in America.
To be fair, John Jones has only made different mistakes. He hasn't made the same mistake twice, it seems, publicly.
Maybe that's the hole in the algorithm. Like, they can only try me once for each thing, and then just
or like he doesn't do all the bad things at once, and he just gets caught individually. He just moves on to a new bad thing,
right,
and gets caught for that.
Right.
So really, like, who knows what's next? We just assume he's a terrible person and just lives in sin and every kind of sin he could live in at once, but that's not true. He's like channeled for sin.
Yeah.
He has like one of those little slidey glasses things with the pictures, with the rotating pictures. He has to hit the lever. We're gonna get something new.
New sin. You think he's just got like a dartboard at his house and it's got all the sins?
Yeah. What's next?
He's like, boop.
I already groped a stripper.
Like, murder. Murder's the next thing, I think.
Yeah, you gotta just straight up kill someone, I think.
Yeah. I think murder will be the one that puts him away for sure. You think, or no?
Manslaughter will put him away. I don't think he's ever gonna murder someone, but he's definitely gonna be reckless with someone's life, and they're not gonna make it.
Yeah. It's like ATVs blindfolded in the woods.
I tried to jump my jet ski over my yacht, and I hit someone on the jet ski on the other side.
Yeah. Oopsies.
You hate to see it.
You hate to see it.
I tried to deny it, but there's 16 IG videos in different angles that are all being posted.
Next time because he's going to publicly apologize so he can fight again.
Will he? I don't even. Will Dana even make him
at the press conference? Someone's gonna bring it up. Someone's fucking at this stage on ESPN, and no one's gonna say anything about it. Really. Actually, you know what? I could be 100% wrong because
I don't think he's gonna apologize. He's just gonna be like, "I'm blessed. I've moved on. I'm just focused for this next fight."
I give because they just refuse to get like legitimate MMA journalists.
Because
it's the Schmo and Ariel. That's it.
What's his name? Because Dana White's not going to give you access if you're legit. If you're going to ask actual questions that he has to answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, every time I watch, the Schmo asks okay questions that they seem like reasonably grounded in something reasonable, and then
Brett Akamoto sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I don't really see him do like questions on the press conference.
No,
though.
but
It's more
he's
Ariel.
not really. He doesn't do that kind of. He does more like reporting. Like, he's asking questions. He has like pretty decent sources who are going to help him break shit.
I'm saying at the presser though, like rarely, like Ariel's the only other person that asks hard hitting questions, and now he doesn't really do that as much. Only a couple things every now and then. You know what I mean? Like most people, I was watching the press coverage this week, and I'm like, you guys had one opportunity to talk to somebody about fighting during COVID, and you're like, what? Three of them, back to back reporters. Oh, can you tell me some of the changes that you are experiencing in the COVID? And it's like,
this was the same day,
documented.
or like 24 hours removed from when we found out like one of the fighters and his
Right,
entire corner all
right.
had COVID. Like,
Ask about that stuff. Hey, how are they treating you? Do you find they're thorough? Like, if you want to know about COVID-related things, myself, if I'm a journalist asking questions, I don't really want to know too much about that because that's going to get covered. Someone else is going to cover that. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe they won't. You know, it's going to be one of those two things. Someone's going to ask the question. And by the way, they did. All of them asked the same fucking 5 questions. All of them did. Only a couple people I heard talk about, you know, other things. But it was all generally the same bullshit questions. Like, it's starting to turn me off to the pressers because, like, if you ask these people, like, we all see, right? If you give them the reins, part of this is the media's fault, and the other part of it is, like, the fighter's fault in the form of pressers, in my opinion, right? Some of them are boring because some fighters, you have to get that out of them. You just have to. Some people are just like that. You have to elicit a reaction out of them, whether it be positive or negative. It doesn't even have to be as nefarious as that. You have to kind of guide them a little bit sometimes, some people. But then there's other people like Connor who will take the reins, and then that's the show. And then now you're asking questions to encourage the show. But if you're going to go to the press conference and you're going to be like, Darn, what's your favorite dinosaur? It's like, what the fuck?
maybe
Think harder.
that's what's hot
Don't
in the
be
streets.
lazy. It's not. It's not,
That's
Jarrett.
what's hot in the streets.
It's not, Jarrett.
I
It
think,
isn't.
and
They
I wonder.
have to give them better questions to ask. Not give them. They just need better journalists to go there and ask questions. People, I don't know. They gotta figure something out because these pressers are getting shitty because they're asking, how do you feel about your weight cut? It's like, dude, like, what the who the fuck are these people? Like, what's happening here?
I think a part of it is like just getting things on the record, like, and not even on the record, like, because you'll see a fighter like answer the same question 3 times at least in a presser, and I think a lot of people want to be able to quote themselves saying something or have a video for social of them asking a question, even if it's a question they've already fucking answered. Some journalism works that way, or at least a section of journalism works that way. Like, for SEO purposes, you want your content being the thing you're clicking on. So if someone does have a weight cut related response that might be interesting, you don't want, if you work for Bloody Elbow, you don't want MMA fighting to have that clip. You want to be in that clip too. I think more importantly though, who does the incentivization to get that sort of way of thinking out there for fighters? Like, I think a lot of people who work in covering fighting do so either like completely from the outside, or maybe not from the outside enough. Like, maybe people who have been in the business for a long time doing other sorts of journalism, or who just did the beats, like just covered, you know, the play-by-plays or the blow-by-blows in the actual fights and just do recaps or whatever. People who don't do much reading outside of like fight scope, people who might know a fighter as a fighter but nothing else about them, and makes no effort to be that well read about them or well read about anything. I think the push for having news be so fast and be so updated and making sure everybody's covering all the same shit means that everyone's attention is always pushing forward and no one's doing lots of reflection and thinking about shit in context. No one's looking at MMA as it relates to A, other combat sports, but B, other things in the world. So those people who end up asking questions about like how Tyron Woodley's like hands feel or whatever, like, this is a person who couldn't maybe be capable of doing these things, but their entire sort of career drive and the process of how they do their job has always been thinking in one direction and not in any other direction. And it's hard to find journalists who can do like the opposite, because they end up not going to MMA or sports journalism because it doesn't pay you anything.
Right.
Like, good journalists don't go to these places. It's the same thing in games journalism. Good journalists don't become games journalists because there's no money in it. Like, you can be the best game journalist in the world. You have to love it because you're going to starve. Like, And what's the point? Like, so you can tell people what they already know. Like, big game companies overwork you and don't pay you very much, or probably still filling your bonus. And like, also, it's run by dudes who've been in the games industry for 30 years, so they think like drawing boobs on your notepad is like hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
what's the point?
Right.
A lot of people, and I don't know if it's happening soon, but I feel like it will be. Like, MMA is a big enough thing where people who weren't just fucking hardcore combat sports fans aren't the only people covering it anymore. Like, there's a new wave of people who are interested in the sport and will cover it with a perspective that they're bringing outside of it that might change the way we ask these questions. It happened in lots of other sports. It happened in football, especially when a lot of football players who were in players unions left and then became journalists themselves. Like, sometimes it requires like a generational shift of people who are interested in the thing to become so interested that they want to go figure out the inner workings and ask questions. So just like every generation of fighter gets better because of how they're influenced by old generations and they're coming in from different perspectives. Like, they're not just dudes who are fighting wherever they could and then be an MMA fighter. They're dudes who like grew up to be MMA fighters and then get farmed from high school to become MMA fighters. Like, they're going to get better that way. I feel like it works the same way in journalism. Like, there are people who maybe did other types of like writing and question and question answer, whatever the fuck, reporting that turned into MMA reporters because they just been in the business forever, or the sports reporters, they just do the sports. So MMA is a sport. They just kind of do it. There will be people who have come from other literary backgrounds who want to cover MMA, and they'll be writing like, they might not even be doing like they might not be at the pressers because that's not worth their time, because they know that's a sanitized place to ask questions. They're the ones making the 10,000 sort of long read about how this whole shit's fucked up.
Right.
And like, maybe nobody will read it and then they get pushed back out or whatever. But it's just like the perspective of the way people cover things now is just in such a way that you can't even expect them to ask good questions. Like, they're there to ask bad questions. That's why pressures exist. If too many journalists started asking good questions, these pressures would stop. It's like what Donald Trump's been trying to do for like 4 years, and he can't do it because he's the president, and it's actually like kind of illegal to do that. But if Donald Trump was just Dana White, CEO of America, and not president of America, there would be no press conferences because no one's asking him good questions.
Yeah.
Or questions he wants to answer.
Right.
And there is no conditioning in sports and lots of sports journalism, and especially in MMA, to ask good questions. They rather ask the bad ones so they can get their face time. And that's just to survive. It's not like it's kind of a cynical way to look at it, but I don't know that they're doing it, to keep the foot, like keep the hush on the entire thing. They're not purposely doing it to keep like the intellectuality of MMA journalism down. I think they're doing it because that's how they survive in this environment, and no one's been able to create an environment where they can do more. That's where websites like Deadspin kind of became important, because they never had access to anything. So they never wrote from a position of trying to save their relationships with anybody. So they were like, fuck it. Like, we don't have MLB backstage shit anyway. So what we're going to do is spend like several years talking about steroids to people who don't want to talk about steroids. Deadspin isn't nearly what it was now because he fired everybody and rehired other scabs, but whatever.
That'll do it.
The way you do it is you have to find a way to work outside the system and make it so like, I don't know, sometimes inflammatory, but like make it so aggressive that it appeals to someone, and then that you can create small bases for these things. But like, Deadspin reporters are not showing up to pressers because they know they can't ask the questions that they want to ask. They weren't even going to UFC events because A, they couldn't get backstage like access anyway, but B, like, what's the point? Like, they're gonna go, a PR person or an agent or a manager is not gonna let them talk to their fighter in a way that they will want to, so it's no point. They're going to ask everybody around them instead. Right. We need more of those people. But like, how do you convince, the people who are at the pressures asking those questions to be that guy?
Well, there's one thing that I could do. I can wage a metaphorical jihad on MMA journalism and pick them apart and make video compilations of how stupid their dumb fucking questions are.
You could.
And use this platform to, encourage some change.
As long as you are also
did.
a person just like Obama.
Yeah.
As long as you also become a person who's willing to ask those questions, even if it's to no one.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to answer you because they don't want to answer them. But like someone should be asking them at least.
Right.
Like if you're a person who reposts the Greg Hardy story every time he fights, if you're asking a question he refuses to answer, no one actually cares. But here we go.
That would be a bit right here. I'll put it in the right. You'll see it right here, or whatever, wherever I put my hands.
Wherever I'm waving my finger.
Wherever I'm waving my fingers. What's the purpose of Greg Hardy? I would like to know, what is the end goal of Greg Hardy? Is it just to get viewership?
It's to troll us out of our money.
Right. That's one question. Hey, I'll pose the question on the internet. It'll be like, these are the questions. You know what I mean? these are the questions I have. What's the deal with airline food and Greg Hardy, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on there? That's question number 1 for the UFC. Question number 2. Like, how long are we going to pretend like everyone's not taking steroids?
I mean, USADA has cracked down pretty heavily. I think what's hilarious about it is USADA is like not qualified to crack down at all because they're a bunch of clowns.
Yeah.
But
no, I'm not saying that everyone is taking steroids. I'm like, why are we all pretending like we don't want everyone to take steroids to get the best TRT fueled VTOR belt forts that we can possibly get out of this sport? I'm not. This isn't just. I can't say this is for the UFC. This is for all of us. I hear some people saying like, "Oh, everyone needs to be clean." And no, fucking give them steroids. Come on.
I think the problem with it is
that's my argument.
It leaks backwards, right? Like,
does it?
Because pros. If
you hate fun, Jared, it leaks backwards.
We take that perspective about professionals who are adults and have the agency to make those decisions, but we also know that like a professional football player starts becoming a professional when they're like 9, which means when they decide they're going to be professional, which is like probably middle school or maybe even earlier than that, they're also deciding to do steroids. So like, do you want your 14-year-old doing steroids?
Yeah.
I don't know.
For sure.
Probably not.
No one's picking on my fucking jacked up.
Probably not, but he's gonna grow all fucking weird and lumpy and won't be able to like understand like his English homework or whatever. Like,
I guess what I'm trying to say is I need more time to think of better questions. But yeah. What's the end goal here for everybody? For especially for Greg Hardy. You know, what that's my main thing. I've always wondered like what is inside of his head. Like obviously no one is allowed to ask these questions, I guess. Like, hey, Dana, why did you get a domestic abuser who's virtually faced no scrutiny for anything he's done towards this person? Almost seemingly directly after the fact that he was getting chastised in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. As soon as the police were like, there's no... As soon as everyone realized there's no charges being pressed, they're like, yeah, he's clearly innocent then.
Yeah. He's clearly innocent then.
Yeah, and there's no charges, so he's clearly innocent.
Yeah, but you know, the NFL did their part of the bargain, and they still held up the suspension. And he's like, "Hey, I'll just do this elsewhere." And then he just like shuck and jived over to the Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series after he got some. I remember it came out as a rumor. It's Greg Hardy's fighting on like amateur level shit, and then he found his way to a pro, like a little regional thing. And then he was successful there. And then that's when he got picked up on the Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. And that's when they were running that show looking for a fight. So I was like wondering like why didn't they really like cover his looking for a fight? Were you not looking for that fight, Dana? Because he got invited to the Tuesday Night Contender Series. Was it by circumstance that he ended up there, or were you looking at him as a possible figurehead with with I guess he had a following of NFL players. Or is it like the venture of like, what does a pro caliber athlete look like when you give him a little bit of training in this little social experiment that we're running called the UFC? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I think it's a little bit of, he clearly just wanted to continue making money.
Yeah.
Greg Hardy, that is, and the UFC. really requires like a very low bar of innocence to like consider you a decent person. This is the same company that kept BJ Penn hired, like employed for about 10 years longer than they should have.
He was employed 6 months ago.
And he was spending lots of his time losing than spending his checks on being drunk as fucking Hawaii and fighting everyone he could see.
Yeah. Including his wife and kids.
Right. So like they don't, their bar for, good role model person isn't exactly high. It's also, if you're going to combat sports and fighters specifically as role models, you're probably fucking up. And that's an irony that we see all the time. Like, because we sort of always, Americans anyway, like to choose the prize, like take the prize fighter as like this some humbled, rugged sort of avatar of American like spirit. You'll fight your way into success against all odds or whatever. Almost all these people are assholes in some way or shape or form. You almost have to be to live in that sport and exist in that space and be a person of like a sort of mindset to exceed that way. Like, we wonder why people like Kobe Bryant and like Michael Jordan are fucking sociopaths, because they kind of had to be.
Yeah.
Be it, they made personal choices to be that way, or like just the environment they were in demanded that of them to then continue to play at the level they were playing. Right. That doesn't make them good people or make them excusable, but it also, maybe these things go hand in hand. So I think a combat sport promoter has to know that, and like they've kind of already sold their soul away with that in that regard. Like, the fact that a person isn't good doesn't necessarily mean they can't be valuable to someone, bottom line, or that they can't be a good fighter, which is like the context they want to keep them in, the compartmentalization that happens with these people. Like, so long as you're a good fighter, I'm going to stay out the rest of your life. And also, like, maybe there's the opportunity to turn around. Like, if you're going to play the second chance card, there's a way to do that, to become a sort of vindicated figure. I think it requires like acknowledging that you did shitty things first, which is why we give Greg Hardy such a hard time, because he never acknowledged the shitty thing we all know he did.
Yeah.
But it's also why like someone like Mike Tyson can become endearing again, because not only did he go to prison for it, he then did acknowledge it and has lived and then took like the wild L when he came out of jail, was no longer like the super duper prize fighter. He had to live in squalor almost and earn it back, whether he wanted to actively or not. Like, that motherfucker was poor and had to basically recreate himself after like 2006.
Yeah.
But I guess there's always angles you can play. It's just up to us to like recognize that, like, yes, I mean, and I guess become complicit as well, right? Like, we all know that Greg Hardy's a piece of shit. We spend as much time as we can. Whenever we mention his name on this show, we also tend to punctuate it with, "Oh yeah, by the way, Greg Hardy's a piece of shit."
Well, that's because like we make an honest effort to like, we're a little. I would say we're a little bit more than a casual fan of the sport, right?
Yeah.
So when you're invested in a sport, or even just in a martial art, and you find a medium to watch it, you tend to follow the journalism surrounding it. You tend to follow updates about it. You tend to follow these fighters' personal pages. You tend to, so on and so forth, right? Because you want to see for me at least, what they're looking like going into a fight. And how that'll affect a fight. And even if it will affect a fight. And if it adds any stakes to a fight. All of this news makes the fight and the experience a little bit better. And the same thing happens with the NFL. If you watch a football team, the NBA, if you watch a basketball team, whatever sport you're watching, you tend to usually follow the people in it. And I'm not saying you need to be a fucking saint, because most of the NFL football players that you follow are generally not saints. You know what I mean? And most people aren't. You know why? Because saints were fucking chosen already. They're out. They're few and far between.
Really, mathematically, you can't be a saint because you weren't chosen.
Yeah, it's not for you. I'm sorry, bro. You can be as ritualistic as you want to, but it's not for you. But the major point I was trying to say in regards to Greg Hardy is, like, we know he's not a saint, and you and I make that punctuation on the fact of it is because like no one is talking about it at all, and I don't want that to be by and large in part because of the lack of platforms of people generally talking about it. When it happened in the NFL, people were like, "Hey, what's up?" And then they stopped almost a month after it like was in the water and it died. For a lot of people, it was good enough. Oh, well, he didn't get charged, so it didn't happen. I can shut my whole brain to it. So he didn't do anything wrong. So he propelled himself forward into another platform where the league was not like, they're like, we're still a bit iffy about you having here. It's hard for us to do Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And Greg Hardy's wearing the pink socks of his. It says "Love your mom," and he's beating his baby mama up. You know what I mean? So it's harder for them to run that. I understand why. The NFL got to a point in their careers as an organization where they were like, you know what? Let's just stop offending people as much as we can. So they won't take any chances with anybody. And for you and me to point, I feel like we're necessary because I don't hear a lot of people talking, even the major ones. I don't hear Joe Rogan talking about the shit. Maybe once in a while I'll hear it. It sucks, right? Yeah, it sucks. Anyway, DMT! And it's like DMT for an hour.
But I wonder if it's not because it's not worth talking about, but I wonder if it's because for Joe, I'm not sure why he doesn't. Because I don't know that. Well, that's neither here nor there. Because I often on first take assume he's a person who kind of just says some shit and lets the people follow him. But in reality, he, like most people who are public figures, has something to curate. There are things you're talking about and not talking about because you have people who want to listen to that shit and don't want to listen to that shit.
Yeah.
But I think lots of people don't want to live in a space where they have to feel guilty for participating in a thing and then are reactionarily sort of making sure they mention that this person's bad to sort of quantify it, right? Like, I feel like that happens a lot. Happened with Jones for a while. Like, people always sort of mention the troubled like life of John Jones and whatever, and then they buy the pay-per-view he's on, and I feel like some reporters anyway feel the need to like make sure they're saying that, like, oh, by the way, John Jones did these fucked up things, as a way to, like, I don't know, assuage guilt for like also participating in the place that gives them the opportunity to do the things.
Right.
Without, and I think the easiest way to not have to feel like conflicted when you do those things is not mention it at all. Which seems just as bad.
It seems worse. It seems just as bad because, like, it's funny to hear, every time we have and now more especially, I haven't looked at the numbers or anything, but apparently domestic violence is, like, going through the roof because everyone's stuck home with their family and they're just getting the shit kicked out of them, which is horrible, right? But you hear people like they go, enough with the, like they do like the whole fucking song and dance, like they're tired of hearing it. And it's like, it's crazy because like when there's something that we can have a conversation about that comes up, or if there's something that we can intervene at, we seem to be quiet about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, it's funny that you take that type of negative energy towards that, but like when something happens where this guy's making, he's making a living off of being violent.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of, it's like, I was thinking about the other day, it was like, would you feel comfortable if you had a surgeon and he really enjoyed cutting you? Like he like he liked it too much. You know what I mean? Like if he was like vocal about it, he's like, honestly, I'm in it so I can cut people open and look inside of them. I mean, I'm really good at my job, but I really love just cutting you open and looking at your organs and stuff. You'd be like, that's really uncomfortable.
I don't love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really uncomfortable for you to say that out loud. Greg Hardy's like, beating people up is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, that's just a thing I love, and that's the kind of, and he's not the first person to say that or the last person to say something like it, right? Like, we love these sort of concepts of like prize fighters just liking to be punched in the face or punch motherfuckers in the face. It just seems fucking silly that we don't treat them like professional fighters who are like artists in some way. Like there's an artistry or a technique to be found here, especially in MMA, where it's just like we just want brutes to fucking kill each other. And then we're surprised when they're actually brutes outside of that life.
Yeah.
Or we're not surprised, or we're not surprised enough when they are.
Right. And I'm not saying I'm even surprised by his behavior because people I mean, they do it. Some men are psychotic, and he's had traumatic brain injury his whole life, so his impulse control is probably non-existent. So he probably just fucking is just abusive. He's probably just a giant, big fucking bully at his house or whatever, and he's able to impose his will on people in and off of the octagon. But what's uncomfortable for me as a viewer is that, like, there was literally no retribution for what he did at all. So it leads me to believe that he's learned nothing. If you go to jail, or if you're given a fine, or if you're reprimanded in some way, like losing your job at the NFL and then finding another job that pays just about the same for you as an athlete, through sponsorships and whatever else, is an option for you. It really tells me that you haven't learned. People, I'm not excusing his behavior at all. People make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. You know what I mean? That seems like a very fucking extreme mistake. If you're, the reason why we were able to accept Mike Tyson back into society as a regular person is he opened himself up. He learned from his mistakes. He made a fucking active, he made an active ability to, like, go out there and change what he's done in his life to make sure he's living a better life. And I can get behind that. He's been in trouble for like rape allegations, and he had been in jail for, all this other drug use, and he's got tigers and all this weird, crazy shit. And he goes to jail and he comes back and he seems like he is relatively changed. I mean, like, if you look at him now and you look at him then, you hear, you couldn't get that guy to sit down and have a regular human conversation before, one-on-one. No. He was essentially a fucking Conan the Barbarian motherfucker walking around, just doing whatever the fuck he want, and they were enabling him by getting him millions of dollars to perform and do well. Whereas he loses all of that. He sees what squalor looks like. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you need to go through these things, but I need to, like, hear some sort of speech about... He didn't even, like, do an apology tweet. Like, he didn't even do something as easy as, like, I'm sorry for what I did.
No, as soon as his lawyers got involved, he kind of stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
And then when it never actually came to, like, real trial, because there was no charges pressed, he just moved on. And it's weird that everybody else didn't. But I think there's always going to be, and this kind of goes back to, like, where sports journalism kind of has to go. There's always going to be this weird relationship between people using whatever platform they can to acknowledge these things, and then everyone being complacent in the thing anyway, because we quote unquote have to be. Like, right. You can't have an MMA podcast without watching MMA, and there's a great chance Greg Hardy's going to be on these cards because he gets profiled that way. And we can use our platform to dissect that whole sort of dichotomy all we want, but we also, I mean, I didn't, but someone paid to watch this man fight. Right. And he is being paid by the UFC because someone's paying to watch him fight. It's not as direct. It's not like the $60 you pay for this pay-per-view, a piece of that is going to him directly. UFC pays him. The UFC gets money on the other end. Your dollars paying for an event he's on is not paying for him to fight on that event. That's not how that works. But you can signal in lots of ways. If you're sitting in the UFC and you're going to watch these things, you can't tell them. There's no way for you to tell Dana White exactly why you bought UFC 249. But he can put the dots together. He can assume you bought it for Tony Ferguson or Justin Gaethje or Henry Cejudo, or he can assume you bought it for Greg Hardy. Who you can't tell him no. You can't tell him that that's not true, but he can make his own assumptions. He's going to keep putting him on these cards. They're going to keep making him lots of money. So the other side is like you can't just swear off UFC necessarily, because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to stop the fact that he's getting booked. So, like, where's the power of you using the platform to highlight it? Like, where does you saying the things and then making sure you're making a point to say the things begin and end? And where does, like, how do you become an active part of a movement that can actually stop these things from happening? I think a lot of journalists don't even ask those questions because what's the point?
I'm never there's that. And then, like, there's a track record of Dana White, like, not affording people who give him a hard time opportunities. I mean, not everyone can end up like Ariel Helwani. You know what I mean? Like Ariel was
who got the ESPN bag, and it was like basically forced Dana White to deal with him.
Right, exactly.
Dana White had revoked his
his
access multiple times and
did
it permanently before that happened.
Ariel had to be so good and drama free and so altruistic in his journalism that he had to be undeniable. Like, he could be undeniable. Listen, whether you're here or there on Ariel Helwani, guy provides undeniable sources of information that usually comes into fruition. Very rarely does Ariel Helwani share a bit of information that no one else knows that doesn't turn out to be later on a fact. Usually it always comes out to be a fact. You know, once in a while he'll share a rumor that may not come into fruition, but the people behind the scenes are like, but he was basically on the right path. You know what I mean? Like it's like one or the other. Like, he's very rarely off. I don't think he's ever shared anything that he hasn't personally verified. So for him to do that and be that journalist that is, you know, like, you know, you want your journalist to be like Ariel Helwani. That's the reason why Dana didn't want him anywhere near his product, because he knew he would ask the questions that needed to be asked, right? So we have guys like Ariel come out there, and you know, and now most recently in the last few years, Brett Okamoto, and he's pretty good too, but he does more of like the interviewing type thing. He's more of like the
I feel like Okamoto's better for asking relevant questions too. In a Bob Costas sit down sort of fashion. Right. Helwani's all right too. I think what really pissed Dana White off about Helwani is that he's
Jewish.
Probably, if we're being honest. But the his like penchant for finding big news that cost Dana White money in some way.
Yeah, like he broke the Brock Lesnar fight very early.
And he was like fucking apoplectic because Ariel Helwani confirmed the thing we all kind of assumed was happening anyway.
He removed his power because of that. He removed his not his power, but he removed his ability
access,
to his access,
backstage access,
and you know, but that's
like,
what
I don't
Ariel
know that he cares
to
necessarily about like asking about these sort of colorful characters' personal lives, because he doesn't have to answer anything at all necessarily. He can just say the UFC is going to, you know, comply with whatever the licensing body does, and the individuals themselves don't have to answer either. So no one's going to compromise themselves in the way in Dana's eyes, or in a way that exposes the UFC in a way that would like cost him any money. So like he feels good on that end, but like if he's out here like getting into the rooms where these deals are being talked about, like that's what really fucks him up. And that is news, and it's important news. But it's not the same kind of news. It's news breaking, and it's journalism in a fact finding sort of way. It's not necessarily journalism in like an op-ed sort of way. We don't have like really good MMA op-ed writers who like are introspective about some shit. Like we don't do that for some reason.
We don't even have like a Matthew Berry for them. We don't even have that.
Like there's no Grantland level writing going on about MMA. Yeah. And I don't know. It's not to say that will never happen, but like it ain't happening yet. And I don't know who's going to be out there doing it.
Yeah.
It ain't going to be me. That's for fucking sure.
Oh man. Well, I mean, that's about everything I have. This card's still going on. We should do we should let this one pass and then the next 12 pass in the next couple of days, and then we should recap them probably in another couple of weeks or so. Well, or maybe till at 250 we should do one or something. I don't know. All right,
so that probably makes sense.
Say that again. Oh, it's in June.
250 is what, like in June 6th. That probably makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm with it. Did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
No.
No hot takes?
No, my takes are all lukewarm these days. Everyone agrees. Like, this shit's bananas.
Lukewarm, yeah. Shouts out to Dana keeping it on, though. Ricky Simone is fighting Ray Borg right now. So
shout out to Vince McMahon and Dana White getting it done.
Yeah. For America. As part of the White House Advisory Board of Entertainment.
Yeah, thank fucking God.
Thank God those two are doing it.
Mm-hmm. Better than Weinstein. It's not like you broke out Weinstein in jail to be like, yo, I need you on this entertainment script.
How about this? You talk to Scarlett Johansson for 12 hours unsupervised in your office.
Yeah, that's That's all you need, right?
Yeah.
Then you can come get America back on track.
Get it back on track, Weinstein. Imagine it's fucking plot of Metal Gear Solid. The beginning where they go to the cabin in the woods to go find him. They're gonna go to Weinstein's prison cell. We need you. We got a job.
I got a picture of Gwyneth Paltrow's feet.
All right.
I need you to take this one job.
Every time I try to get out, pull me back in. But yeah, follow at Jarrett John, JARERETTJAWN at Jarrett John. John is not his last name.
It's not.
Follow us at Catchweight Update on Instagram. Follow, like, subscribe, all that dumb, whatever, stupid shit. On YouTube, Catchweight Update. If you want to follow me on Instagram, mine is High Functioning Stupid, all one word. That's it. Blacow. Peace, love, and gap. We're gonna do that. Au revoir.